Hello, ladies, gentlemen, whoever, whatever you identify as. Welcome back to the Shed of Dread and welcome to another stream of Why We Love Doctor Who, now Part 11, New Who, Series 4, David Tennant still going strong, and I'm joined, as always, by John and Goldenagedgeek. Hello, gentlemen, and how are we today?
Oh, hello, everybody. Hi, Gobby. Hi, Goldenagedgeek. Oh, just so ready for this Series 4. It's a good one.
It is. Can't argue with that. And how are you today, Goldenagedgeek?
I'm doing absolutely fine. I'm really excited to talk about the series. It's an absolute banger. So many good episodes.
Awesome. It's going to be a good one. This is, I can tell with my bones we're going to have a good one. And I'm actually going to be able to be in full attendance, hopefully, for the whole damn thing.
Yes, we've got Jack's just commented in the comments there. He says he might be able to join us in the next hour or so.
That's awesome.
Let Gobby know.
Just pop up, just pop straight up, Jack, and I'll bring you straight in. No worries, mate. No worries at all. So, shall we get to the nitty gritty of it all? Shall we? It's
like this series is like this fantastic present. I'm almost reluctant to dive in. You know, the more you put off, we're going to get to talk about Series 4, but now we're here. Now it is Series 4.
This is it.
And it's like being in a machine pushing this forwards now. We're just going to have to talk about it. The time has arrived.
It has indeed.
And I mean, it all starts off in such an incredible place, you know, because Series 4 starts with the most delightful, fun, comedic episode.
Yes, indeed.
With partners in crime.
Oh, indeed. What a lovely episode this is.
I remember this one going out so well. Actually, it was a good time for the show. I mean, the expectations were really high. The national audience was really engaged. I mean, the viewing figures would dipped a little, I think, off Series 3 for Series 4.
Yeah,
I mean, that's normal of a mature series, but the core audience was big and strong and committed and just loving it. And these were great times. These were great times for fandom. These were great times for the show. And this episode, Partners in Crime is just such a delight, because it's all the comedy of errors thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Donna has had a period of self-realization since she met the Doctor in The Runaway Bride.
Yeah,
and she's basically kicking herself up the backside, but she didn't take the opportunity that was in front of her back then. Her apprehension, and I mean, look, she had a very weird day.
Yeah, you could say that. Not the mill, was it really? Let's be honest.
No, she did have a very weird day. She had a lot to cope with that day. So I mean, kind of understandable.
Oh,
but
yes.
in the time since, while the Doctor's been off having his adventures with Martha Jones, Donna has dedicated herself to trying to find him again. And the same as Sarah Jane Smith, she's realised that the best way to find the Doctor is to act like the Doctor.
Yeah.
So she's looking for doctory type situations that he might turn up in, and her own nosing about has led her to be suspicious of what's going on at one Adipose Industries.
Yes, Adipose Industries indeed. Very strange goings on.
Let's turn this over to. What did you tell us, Gobby? How did you find the series opener for Series 4?
I enjoyed it. It was silly. It was funny. It was just a good bit of entertainment. Yes, which is sorely lacking nowadays. I mean, I've always had a problem. I don't particularly like Donna as a companion, but this was, you could see they were all just having a whale of a time doing this one, and they really enjoyed it. And you can't help but get sort of wrapped up in their enthusiasm and excitement. And it was just a good little episode. You can't go wrong, really. And it did sort of show that this, when he was going with Donna, it's going to be a little bit of different type of atmosphere in the TARDIS, which was just refreshing and a nice change. There you go.
Well, quick shout out to hi to On Comics who's just popped in the
Yes,
chat.
hail,
So hi
chat.
Lonnie, hi, nice to see
Hi,
you
Lonnie,
here.
nice to see you.
I mean the first thing with Donna, isn't it, is that it's that incredible chemistry
Yes. Oh, you can't.
between David Tennant and Catherine Tate. I
It
mean,
was there. Yeah.
I know we've slightly discussed how you had trouble taking to Donna.
Yeah.
Because of how well known Catherine Tate was at the time for the Catherine Tate show, and especially the Falmouth Gran character. I adore Falmouth Gran.
Well, I like Falmouth.
I
can't deny Falmouth Gran. It's a level all on its own.
But the general thing, because it gave her a certain social spikiness.
Yeah.
I suppose as a celebrity, as a personality, so there was a little bit of, should we call it, baggage there? But what I adore about this episode is, I think the real heart of it is the scene where the Doctor and Donna finally stop missing each other.
Oh, the window scene.
Yes, because there's a couple of times.
There's
a couple of times when we see them go off down different directions, down different alleys, and they've just gone the other way. They'd have met a moment later, But when it comes to the scene where the Doctor's outside on the window cleaning rig, and Donna's inside looking at him through this sort of porthole window in a door, and they're both trying to I spy what's going on in the office, and the miming and how brilliantly Catherine Tate just improv that. We totally get. I was trying to find you. I was looking everywhere for you. Now I found you, and oh shit! Now she can see me. That was just so funny.
It is.
And it's heartwarming stuff. And as for the adipose themselves, benign but sinister at the same time. Which is quite a clever Russell idea. I think he must have been trying to diet at the time.
He must have.
So he's trying to exercise his inner diet demons here. Why can't all this fat just walk away? That's the kind of a hook for an idea that makes a great Doctor Who story.
Yeah.
And although they only appeared this one time, at least so far, I think the adipose did make a lasting impression, because it was a whole wall of cute, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
And
definitely cute.
I think the other key strength of the story is the fantastic scene at the end where Bernard Cribbins, who's now been properly introduced as Wilf, Donna's granddad, he's up on his allotment stargazing with his thermos and his telescope, and we see her in the doorway of the TARDIS waving at him. And the Doctor behind her, and Wilf's just completely made up. You go, Donna. You found him. You found that man. You go have those adventures. And also, just a few minutes before, the utter comic relief of him absolutely missing the giant alien mothership just floating right in front of him.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
So definitely, comedy was strong in this story.
Very strong. Very strong.
Which made a rather revolting, disgusting concept palatable. But imagine if they played it for fear. You could take it completely different, this concept, couldn't you? I'm going to set the fat right out of you. Oh my word. Anyway, I want to know what where Golden Age Geek views all of this. So let's find out. What's your take?
Well, this episode is one that I very much enjoy. It's a light-hearted episode, but I think that's something that we needed, because the last few episodes of season 3 were very much darker than your usual Doctor Who stories. And there were a lot of darker Doctor Who stories in series 3, a lot that were emotional, like with Family of Blood, but then also darker ones, like with Blink, which is essentially a horror story. I love the parallels between the Doctor and Donna that are very clearly established, because they're both doing the exact same thing, but they're missing each other, and there's sort of like a mirror sort of established, where they're both doing the same thing in the same room, but one's on one side, one's on the other. So it shows that Donna is very much like the Doctor. It makes sense that she would seek him out because he does the exact same things that she wishes to do. She wants to help people and that sort of thing. The adipose themselves, I think they're a simple concept, but Doctor Who does that. It takes the just most mundane thing and just makes it into a sci-fi concept. I think I don't really think that anyone's wishing for them to come back. I don't really think they can be a recurring villain, but for this story they worked very well. I love the fact that with Donna, and as you've said, you may not gravitate as much towards Catherine Tate as the companion, but I think one thing that this Doctor companion relationship has that I think is superior to the previous ones that we've seen in New Who is the fact that there is no romance there, and it's very early on established that these are just mates. There isn't going to be any will they, won't they. They are just two
keep
mates.
Your hands off, space boy.
Yeah.
You aren't mating with me, sunshine.
Well, I mean, we discussed this whole relationship, Doctor companion relationship question last episode, didn't we? We're talking about Martha in series 3, and I think this is just more proof, that RTD was consciously looking to move away from what he'd done with Rose, and knew the series had to get a new dynamic on the go, and but also that the heights that the Doctor reached with Rose was so high emotionally that he had to have the sort of moping around thing with Martha. But now he's got that out of his system a bit too, so he can just be mates.
Yep.
And and I think that's what's so good about the dynamic between the Doctor and Donna is that it does take that stuff out of it, and they are just going out there and seeing the sights, and it's what it should be. It's Doctor Who taking a human out into the universe to see what's out there and to learn and to grow. So I mean, the character growth in this series is incredible.
Oh,
but of course, having talked about Donna, we also get the tease, don't we? With the I just left those car keys in that bin over there. Can you tell my mum? Line. And then I'm just going to say Donna was having an excitable day. So there's a sort of plan that makes sense when you're having an excitable day. I'm just going to leave the car keys in that rubbish bin. That'll work out. No problem.
Makes sense.
But then lo and behold, there she is. There's Billie Piper. And what the hell is she doing there? So, it's also making it clear that this series is going to have to go. It's going to be going back and revisiting some old ground.
Yeah.
Bit of a mixed response in fandom to that at the time, I think.
Yeah.
Oh God, not her again, said some of us.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally didn't feel the Rose story needed to be revisited.
No, normally.
But I think I ultimately didn't mind that it was. But we'll get to talk about that all later.
Yeah,
but it's worth mentioning, that the tease is in there. And maybe that also helped with the Dr. Donna thing, because that tease was kind of teasing some fans that maybe Rose and the Doctor will get back together.
Well, exactly.
I mean, it's at least offering the, even if we don't think it will actually happen, it's at least offering the promise of that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, very subtle, very clever, indeed. Yes.
Well, I think the biggest reason for Rose to come back was Russell already had the idea in his head of how he wanted to wrap up what we knew would be his last full season. So he wanted he wanted to bookmark it all, didn't he? So
setting it up, wasn't
he? I don't think it's a choice I would have made to bring Rose back.
But you can see why
it's a choice that was made, and it was set up for the season tease.
Yes.
So, have we got anything else that we need to say about Partners in Crime?
No, I'm quite happy with. I think we've covered everything.
No, I'm fine.
Yeah,
we're all good. Well, let's do some scores, George Dawes. Then I'm gonna set out with a B.
Oh, fair enough. I will give it a B minus.
B minus.
B minus.
Goldenagedgeek.
I will say an A.
Oh,
Okay,
nice.
So
Good.
I really love
got
this one.
a good start. I mean,
Good start.
anything which is, two B's and an A, we're talking about in the 85 percentile mark, aren't we, as an episode?
We
So
said,
it's a good, solid opener.
Yeah.
Sadako coming in with a C, which is improved on his scores for the previous series.
And Matthew's
There's Matthew with a B. Okay, great.
That's
So,
good.
and then we were diving a lot head first through the corridors of time for a story which I feel is one of the most emotionally strongest of all of David Tennant's stories, because it certainly gets me every time, but then I am a big softy on the quiet. Which is, of course, the fires of Pompeii.
Yeah.
How did you find this one when it went out, Goldenagedgeek? What you give us your take on Pompeii?
This was a very different type of story, and it is a very unique happening in history. I didn't really know much about this at the time, so Doctor Who sort of being the line between sci-fi but also being educational, it did teach me a lot about it. I think the one thing that I don't really like about this episode that much is the fact that there is a huge emphasis on magic, and usually when there's some sort of magical element in a Doctor Who story, it's usually explained away with science. And although they do have a little sci-fi explanation to some of the things that do happen, I feel that there is a bit too much magic in it, and the things that they do show are not really explained in a way that makes much sense to me.
What, like killing a lava monster with a water pistol?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I get that. I do.
Yeah,
get
okay.
that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean,
But I mean, production-wise, it was plenty lavish, wasn't it?
Oh,
going
God,
to film in facilities in Italy, so having a very authentic Roman look to the whole thing, and oh gosh, I'm just trying to think of the actor. His name's gone right out of my head because he was in the news not very long ago for calling woke a load of nonsense. But the one who plays the Roman, the Roman, oh, what is he? He's not a senator, is he? Governor, but whose arm turns to stone.
Is that
What's that actor's name? Oh gosh,
Phil Davies.
yes,
No, yes, Phil Davies. He played Lucius, I think it was.
That's it, Lucius.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
that's the one. That's the one. So that was a fantastic turn. It's some great talent in it. We've also got two people who've become very important to Doctor Who. Both made their debut in the series in this episode.
Yes.
Namely, you've got one Karen Gillan.
Yeah, indeed.
Behind the cultist makeup as girl with painted eyes in Cult number 2.
Yep, that's the one.
Not exactly a standout part, but she gets to do a little bit of acting in it. But that was where Karen first came to production's attention. And of course, we've also got none other than Mr. Peter Capaldi.
Yes.
Playing the Granite Merchant.
Yes.
Ficus, is it?
Is
something like that? Ultimately, him and his Capaldi and his family, Capaldi's character and his family, are the emotional core of the story.
They are indeed.
Because there's a lot of excitable running around.
Lots of running around.
And gases and vapours coming up from under the ground. And disconcerting rumblings from the mountain. But when it all goes completely wrong, because the Doctor has had to stop the pyrovile, and in doing so has had to accept responsibility for failing to change the sequence of events that caused the volcano to explode.
Yeah. He had to make that choice.
And, he is absolutely he's run ragged.
Yep, absolutely.
And he's extremely raw, and he's quite angry but also quite determined for his responsibility to time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a tough choice.
But Donna, it's her first time traveling. It's her first time away from the modern world. And the weight of this foreknowledge has been terrible for her. But now she breaks on the point that it's not just for knowing that it was coming, because she tried to tell people, she saw for herself that people wouldn't listen.
Yeah.
But it's now that it's happening, not to try to do something to help in some way, and she can't take it. And the acting is incredible here.
Yeah, it is. It's impressive. It is impressive acting.
The acting is, and this showed. I mean, this showed episode 2 of a new series. We had a fluffy intro, all nice and happy. But this shows that there actually is some bollocks to this pairing up.
There is,
you know, and I mean, and then the emotional crescendo of the TARDIS coming back, rematerializing from the void. The light streaming out of the doors, the Doctor's hand outstretched to the Ficus family, and saving them. I completely tear up every time I get to this part of his story. I can't watch this without crying.
No, it's a very, very poignant moment.
I don't know if anybody else is prepared to admit that. I mean. I'm sure there's people who watch this and just doesn't, it doesn't register for them. But there's something about this just gets me. It's just the whole drama and the way the way the tragedy of the situation is presented.
Yeah.
How easily you can imagine the difficulty of being in that position and having to make that choice. How well it opens up the dilemma for the audience. I mean, this is fantastic stuff.
Oh, it is.
I did hear that James Moran had some problems getting his script together for this.
Right.
And I think it's in that book that Russell did about his diary of writing Doctor Who. That he was talking about the needs to do work on this script. But I mean, it certainly got there in the end.
Oh yes,
and I'm a bit surprised we never saw James Moran on the show again, because I think that he had at its heart, this is a story with a clear vision of how to do a strong, affecting time travel story. I think it's a great example.
Absolutely.
But just some elements perhaps were a bit rushed. The 45-minute format. The actual content that was being tackled pretty heavy.
Yeah,
I think like a lot of things with New Who, this could have done with more space.
Well, yeah, but
but it didn't half get there.
Oh God,
it didn't half get there. Let's get back to Goldenagedgeek. What else could you add on this one?
As I say, I think there are some parts of this episode that are a little out there, but I do appreciate the character moments that are between the Doctor and Donna. He has to make the hard decision, and he is responsible for this huge disaster that happens at Pompeii, and it just makes us remember that the Doctor does have to make these difficult decisions. The Doctor isn't always someone who's going to come in and have all the answers.
Well, he has to stop the disaster that would be, and the consequences of the disaster that always was, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if
he has to choose the lesser of the two evils.
It is a lesser of two evils, yes.
It is a tough one. And you can see how much it weighs on him as well, which is a mark of the acting. On both of them, actually, you can see how much this decision weighs very heavy on their shoulders. And that's was great writing and absolutely sublime acting. And
let's do it. Despite the fact, recognizing, despite the fact it's not a perfect script, I'm in an A territory here. This is my first A for Series 4.
And I'll agree. I'll give it.
I can't ignore how much this episode impacts on me.
Yeah, it's emotional.
So it brilliantly effective.
Yeah, so I'll give it an A as well because I think it's brilliant, and because it's set so well in a very well-known historical event, it's just absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love it. So yeah, definitely an A for me.
I will say B plus.
We can swap it out. You could be Mr. B this time. That's fair enough. Yes. Yeah.
Matt's giving it a B. Matt's giving it a B. So there you
Bit
go.
of B cop, bit of A cop, B cop. You know.
Yeah. So again, we're up there. Oh, and File 13 as mentioned something which we should have really mentioned. It's Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone.
Oh yes, God
Yes,
bless the Irish.
It is, yeah, God bless the Irish, and there's going to be some sore heads in the morning, no doubt.
That's the best way.
The best way.
So you thought you'd had enough of your emotions being mussed around with this week. Then it gets even worse because we travel to the planet of the Ood. And hello, Graham Harper's direction, which does not give this episode some bang.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So I'll set the scene, and because we met the Ood in the Satan Pit,
we did
back in series 2.
Yep.
But you know, if it'd been on the Doctor's mind, he had his hands a bit full dealing with the literal embodiment of Satan at the time.
Yeah, just a small problem.
But you know, he didn't really get to do all he hoped he could have done for the Ood in that situation.
Yeah.
So the Doctor's decided he's going to have a little look into Ood life.
Ood life, indeed.
So he takes Donna to the far future and to the planet Oodsphere.
Oodsphere, great name.
Where a company called Ood Operations are packaging up the Ood and flogging them off around the galaxy as domestic slaves.
Yes.
And you know, this whole story is about the Doctor and Donna finding out about the plight of the Ood, investigating what's going on, and then bringing about a lasting change.
Lasting change.
So this is a story about revolution. This is a story about society. This is a story about exploitation. It's a story about slavery. You know, so it's got very powerful themes.
It certainly has.
And it's got a wonderful turn by Tim McInnery.
Yes. Mr. Halpin, I think it was, wasn't
it? Somewhat. What's the right word for that character? I mean, odious, yes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yes, it's an odious character, but it's supercilious and superior.
Yeah.
You know, and prejudice.
Yes, very prejudiced.
You know, all of those things, you know, are embodied in him, aren't they?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, what about Goldenagedgeek? How did you approach this story? How did you find it?
I mean, there is those messages there which you said, but they don't just blatantly you scream it in your face. It's very much presented in a way where you have to make sort of
proper dramatic story themes.
Yeah, proper themes. Yeah,
not no woke. No, this is the year before woke, when people still wrote for television because they love television. Oh
yeah.
What a thing to get back to. And when people still directing television because they love directing television as well. I mean, you know, back to Graham Harper, you know, he really does give this some oomph.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, the deeper part of the story is unveiling the mystery of the Ood themselves as a life form.
Mm.
And you know, with the whole red eyes, he's got a bad case of red eye. You know, and the clicking the button on the globes.
Yes.
But the way the globes have always come out of their mouths.
Mm.
And then to have that explained in this somewhat fascinating yet horrific concept of an exterior brain.
Oh, yeah.
That they have to hold in their hands. And that, as Donna rightly observes, they have to be a peaceful species. They got their freaking brains in their hands.
Well, yes, exactly. That's a good play.
But then the malice with how ruthlessly they've been exploited by the humans.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. It's so wrong. Yeah, it's a good way. Yeah, it's a good. But the thing is, it does, as Goldenagedgeek said, this is when politics and statements were made in the way Doctor Who used to do it, which was in a subtle yet very effective way of putting the message across without patronising. And I just thought it was brilliant. It tackled things very, very, very well. I actually enjoyed this. I enjoyed
Well,
this
look,
because
let's be realistic for a moment, right? Because I mean, we're living in a very polarized world.
we are
With
indeed.
people who've become very bad at listening to each other.
Yep.
But the reality is that to enslave somebody is to steal their labor.
Yep.
That's what slavery's always been about. You
Yep.
know, the work that somebody does has value. If you can steal that value off them, you'll become richer a lot quicker.
Yep. Absolutely.
And there isn't a continent on the planet that has not been riven by slavery in the past.
Yep.
There's not a continent on the planet where slavery isn't larger and bigger today than it's ever been before.
Yep.
And slavery is a very real and present problem in our world today.
Absolutely.
So, you know, the science fiction to imagine that, you know, when humans get out there, there's going to be examples of where some humans will enslave others, you know, and for us to look at that and to look at what it is within ourselves. And it isn't a political issue. It's not a left or right issue.
No, it's not.
You know, there have been left-wing and right-wing governments which have both presided over enslavement.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, I mean, you could look at the people in North Korea and say they're enslaved by a left-wing government today.
Yeah, they certainly are.
Absolutely. You know, in the same way that right-wing governments used forced labor and enslaved people in the 20th century, to say nothing of the history of slavery going right way.
Oh, well, way back to the mists of time. From the mists of time.
For Doctor Who to do a story which looks at slavery not so much from the who was right and wrong historical context, but from getting into the very heart of what is slavery and why is it wrong to enslave another.
Yeah.
And to show the Ood's suffering and to help us to feel that suffering and to help us to feel the Ood's longing for freedom as the Doctor tunes Donna in psychically to the Ood's song.
Yeah.
It's all very moving and very effective stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, combined with the action sequences, the fantastic claw in the warehouse scene, which I think everyone was justly proud of that at the time because it's certainly very effective and dramatic to have Tennant bouncing off all those big crates. I mean, you really do feel like there's a real sense of danger there. It's not a forgettable CGI threat.
No.
And then to have the whole thing brought to such a karmic balance as the Ood's impressor himself becomes one of the impressed.
Yeah.
But then also gets to share in the promise of their new joint liberation. It's a new start for them all. And, you know, and the establishment of Ood as a fully self-realized species.
Yeah.
Which again, it's a little odd, but we haven't perhaps seen more of Ood since, although we do strongly come into the end of Tennant's run. So this isn't the last time we see. It isn't the last time that Ten has his destiny shaped by the Ood.
No.
But I love this story. It's a great story.
It is.
Looking at how much there is in there. And again, I'm a little surprised we didn't see more from Keith Temple because the promise of his writing here, I'm really, really happy to give Planet of the Ood a good result. But I want to hear the last thoughts from Goldenagedgeek on it first and your own, Gobby, of course.
Yep.
So, I agree with most of the points you've said. And with talking about the sort of, realistic aspects to this episode, it does annoy me when certain people conflate moral issues with political issues. And this is
Yes.
very much tackling those moral issues. And it isn't going after one side. It is just very much talking about way just any humans, any evil humans would act and enslave people and what that does to someone. So, it's something that everyone can take something from, and it's not attacking any side. It is just attacking the concept of slavery. I do like the bit of continuity at the start of the episode that they have when they mention that the sensorites come from the Ood sphere, and the Doctor says, "Oh, I've been there before." Of course, reference in the first Doctor story.
Yes, the sensorites.
which is
Yes,
very good.
Exactly. Yes. Absolutely right. Brilliant. Yes,
I do love that bit of interconnectivity. Russell has always managed to do that really well.
He's very, very good at doing that. Looking back when he should do.
I'm just thinking, I mean, in terms of, there is a little political flavour in that Ood Operations is very clearly a, quote, evil corporation.
Yeah.
So there's a certain, you could take it and say there's a certain critique of capitalism in here.
Yeah.
But if I contrast that to The Mutants, which was the John Pertwee story, but also dealt with themes of enslavement.
Yeah.
That was very much more a government enslavement.
Yes. It's more government based, wasn't it?
So we've seen Doctor Who tackle the enslavement of aliens, both sort of government and a corporate kind of sphere. So you could certainly say, but I mean, there's plenty of criticism of left and right wing political thought for both stories.
Yeah.
But I mean, of the two, I mean, the Planet of the Ood is a much slicker product. Obviously, it's much more exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a wonderful story. Any last thoughts on it yourself, Gobby?
No, to be fair, everybody's just covered it.
We've smothered it, haven't we? We've smothered it.
I mean,
yes.
there is nothing to add to what was a fantastic episode and very well written, and it was just a damn good solid episode, absolute solid episode. Loved it, absolutely loved it. Mind you, then again, it's this season. Going to struggle not to love any of them.
On comics mentions the Uyghurs.
Yes.
Which is certainly a parallel today with the communist Chinese regime oppressing the Muslim people in the northern parts of the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, modern slavery, they're being sent to camps in their thousands upon thousands, while Disney makes Mulan, and thanks the Chinese district where the enslavement of these Uyghurs is taking place. Yes. And let's not forget those lovely factories that need the suicide nets to prevent the employees from ending it all senselessly because they're so happy with their lot.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Indeed.
So many evils in the world today. Let's hope Doctor Who tackles them as well in the future as it tackled the Planet of the Ood back in 2008.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's something to look forward to with what may be coming up with the Gatwa era. Come on, Russell. Let's deal with the plight of the Uyghurs properly.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. So I'm going to finish up. I'm going to go A.
Oh, fair enough.
I mean, I'm holding off my pluses.
You're holding them back,
yeah,
aren't you?
I'm holding off my pluses. But this is just solid, great Doctor Who. It's an A for me.
Yeah.
Goldenagedgeek. What about you?
Yeah.
I would say an A as well.
An A as well, Gobby?
And it has to be an A for me as well.
We really like this season, guys.
We really like it.
Well, maybe when Jack is free, we could get to dissent back on this panel.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
We're just a whole bunch of agreeing about stuff at the moment. But we should get Sadako on for one of these, shouldn't we?
We should.
Yes, we should get
Please
Sadako.
give it a C+.
You up for that, Sadako?
Sadako,
can we tell us all what you think? Yeah.
And Matthews give it a B+. So we've got a C+ and a B+.
Yes.
So that's good.
You just have to forgive my abundant positivity. But I wish every Doctor Who story could be as good as Planet of the Ood.
unfortunately.
If I wish that was the minimum standard that we got.
Yes, yeah, the minimum standard would be nice.
The
wouldn't it?
minimum standard of writing, direction,
Oh, look, you said
production,
it
acting.
could do.
I could do well. Okay, we'll talk to you about that afterwards. We might get you on next week.
Yes,
Um,
yes, why not?
Because just to explain, guys, we should have said this at the start, shouldn't we, Gobby?
Really,
We
you should
are,
have.
yeah, I know, but it's like that if you're like professional or something.
Yeah.
We are doing. We're stopping with. We'll be stopping with Journey's End tonight,
Yeah.
and we will be doing series 4.5 next week.
Yeah.
Which is just too much to do all in one podcast to get right to the end of 10th Run. But we're
Absolutely.
also, what we're going to do is we're going to have a discussion about, was New Who a success? Did New Who come back in the right way? What did RTD get right and wrong in his time as showrunner? What was the biggest pluses and minuses about Tennant's time on the show? Just generally have a discussion about the first 4 years of New Who, and what we could take from that, looking forward to RTD coming back. So we're going to do that. We're going to do sort of a bit of a 2-part thing next week, so we'll come up to time sort of thing. And then of course we'll be carrying on with series 5 after.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
right.
we've had Time Profits input on that.
No.
Straight to the point. No.
We quite understand. Yeah, but who knows? We may have Sadako join us for that. We'll find out.
Yes, that'd be good.
So where were we? Yeah. So now we need to move on again, don't we? We're diving into the first of the 2-parters.
Yes,
because there's some Tarans, and they've come up with a stratagem.
They've come up with a stratagem indeed. Plans afoot.
This was a big tentpole 2-parter.
Oh, it massively, yeah, it was a big one.
And I think the confidence of this 2-parter, the way it literally just strides out with confidence onto the screen and plays out, says a lot about the lessons that have been learned in producing the show up to this point.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And we've got a number of really important elements. Number one, it's Martha Jones back, and she's on the phone
again.
to the doctor. I'm calling you back.
Yes.
And we've got Unit mobilized on a large scale. We've got soldiers everywhere.
There's loads of them.
Yeah, there's loads of soldiers everywhere. And that's all right, because the Centauans have turned up and they got loads of soldiers too.
Yes, so it's a pitch battle.
So this is very much a lots of soldiers, lots of extras, big concept, big threat, big tentpole Doctor Who story.
Yes, indeed it is.
This is a big alien invasion story in quite a hardcore, pure way. And what's happening is the Centaurans are maneuvering themselves into position.
They are.
And they have cooked up a scheme regarding a device which has become universal, a very effective form of catalytic converter for clearing up car pollution.
Indeed.
Which is also, because why not, a built-in sat-nav.
Well, of course. Why?
Yes.
They lend each other perfectly. Yes, absolutely.
So the Centaurans have been putting these catalytic converters in place all around the planet, because it's their evil plan to suddenly turn them into reverse and belch out all that poisonous gas they've been storing in some pocket dimension somewhere.
Somewhere, yes.
Yeah. Meanwhile, anybody who's getting too close to finding out of their plans is having a nasty car accident.
Yes, a terrible. It just happens.
You have reached your destination. You have reached your destination. Yeah, absolutely. So it's all big mystery, big threat, and Unit has got wind that something's going on, but they're really not sure what, and they're trying to find out. And the Doctor kind of is a little bit flat and a little bit bristled at the same time.
Yeah.
To be involved with Unit again. I mean, he does love the saving the Earth bit.
Yeah.
He can't, but then, his war wounds from the
Yeah.
Time War are still so raw, but he just can't stand for them to give him any kind of military respect. You know,
Yeah.
like, oh God, no, don't salute me. But this is the Doctor maybe looking back at himself and thinking back to when he was more naive.
Yes,
You
indeed.
know, and when he was unit's paramilitary advisor, and he did work all those years with Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, not
Yeah.
knowing the horrors of war that lay ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
And in the aftermath of the total devastation of the Time War, does the Doctor feel foolish to look back on this time where he was also wrapped up in playing tin soldiers?
Yeah. It's
Interesting questions to think about what the Doctor's attitude to unit might say about the Doctor's character. But also just the Doctor's cool. He doesn't do armies. You know,
no.
he's so it's the anti-authoritarian streak in him as well.
Yeah, because
Um,
he doesn't like being bossed around, does he?
but the plot unfolds, and Martha gets sucked down a corridor she shouldn't have gone down, and gets herself replicated. And here we meet a Sontaran properly for the first time, and certainly the idea to make them all so uniform was a good one.
Yeah.
Because the mob of Sontarans that turned up to attack Gallifrey in the invasion of time didn't exactly look like they'd all cloned from the same batch.
No,
You
no.
know,
They looked a bit rough, yeah.
the fat and the thin and the long and the tall of it. So unifying the Sontarans to a certain extent, but I must say I don't quite understand making them 5 foot tall.
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a metaphor about the little man, big gun military mind thing. It's a dig at the military
It is.
in a way.
Yeah, it is a little way.
It's a bit
Yeah.
of a dig at the military. So but hey, that's all right. They're alien military. We can take a dig at them.
Yeah.
But where the Sontarans do really work in this story is where you get these scenes of them all acting and moving en masse.
Yeah.
And they are very effective as sort of a sort of sci-fi super soldier kind of threat. I just wish they could have been a bit larger and perhaps been stuck a bit more to the classic. And of course, ironically, Chibnall brought the Sontarans back with a much more faithful costume.
Yeah.
In Flux, but nobody watched it and nobody really cared.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is it.
Basically.
Basically.
Basically. So, I mean, he undermined the Sontarans by making them sugar addicts. What the hell? I mean, that wasn't a great Sontaran story in itself. But I think if you could have taken those Flux costumes and put them on the Sontaran stratagem Sontarans and had both Sontarans in the story, they would have been a lot more intimidating.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I agree.
But maybe it didn't need to be too intimidating because this is Saturday tea time we're talking about.
Well, yeah, we sometimes forget that.
So we get to the end of part 1, and the Sontarans have turned on all their switches and they've activated their evil plan. And suddenly everyone's completely drowning in poison gas. And Wolf is trapped in the car and the Doctor's trying to get a window open. It is Wolf trapped in the car, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Doctor's trying to get a window open, and it's all like, oh my God, it's all happening. The Earth's getting invaded. Oh no, what do we do? Climax drama, cliffhanger. So it comes to a very strong part 1. So you tell me about part 1, Goldenagedgeek.
This episode, I mean, there were a lot of things that I did like about it. I like the sort of critique at too much implementation of technology into our lives. I'm very curious. I'm very skeptical of how technology is going to go possibly too far to the point where it's not really beneficial for us. It's actually going to harm us. So I do like that comment there because, I mean, a lot of sci-fi movies and shows always comment on the fact that the human aspect of life is the most important thing, and once you get rid of that, then life is essentially meaningless. So I do like the critique of the technology in the cars and how the technology is taken over and just leading you to your death. So I do like that. I don't know how I really feel about the twist halfway through that Martha is a clone. I feel like it can very undermine the earlier scenes in the episode, like when the Doctor and her meet again, and then because I believe she's
no, she
already
isn't
a clone.
She isn't a clone, man.
Oh, okay.
We see her become a clone later.
Yeah.
So she's not a clone when he first turns up, but then I am a clone, Martha. It's played for way too obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's the whole. It turns out it is the Doctor knows, but the Doctor knows what he knows, but he knows what you know. It's one of those.
Yeah.
So it's being clever, basically.
Yes, it certainly is.
But
you're
of
right,
course, me watching this for the first time, this was the first time I was introduced to UNIT as, in their proper scale, because of course we'd seen glimpses of them and we'd have mentions of them.
And
But as
you
you
asked
say,
us about UNIT with Series 1, didn't you? And how did we find aliens in London? So here's the answer, really. This is much more what we would think of as a UNIT story. But having seen the 70s stuff, you now completely understand why,
Yeah.
Lots of military turning up in trucks. It's a UNIT story.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. We always turn up in trucks. Yes, God forgive us, we never turned up in a truck. Oh, many a time sent to the back of a truck. Yeah, any case. Oh dear. But,
so the Zentans themselves as a concept. How wrapped up in this? How excited were you by the end of part 1?
I was someone who felt that the Sontarans, I do think that the designs are a little bit childish, a little bit silly. I mean, I can understand.
Did you think that? Did you think that at the time, or is that how you look at them now?
No, I always seem to think that because I've always watched, even from a younger age, I always watched older sort of science fiction stuff, which they didn't really pander to a very young audience. So I was very aware of sort of very scary designs of monsters and that sort of thing. And I think this story just really stuck out to me as this just felt a bit too childish. But I can understand that they were trying to, appeal to a family audience because, ultimately when people say Doctor Who is sort of childish, I don't agree with that necessarily. It's sort of for all ages, which does encompass children. I do understand that. I just think maybe they could have done a few alterations to the design, like with what we saw in Flux, which was the only good thing in that. I think that the design that they had in there was much better.
Well, it was much more faithful to the original concept.
The Sontaran. That's what they should look like.
I think it's fair. It's fair to say that it was much more faithful to the original concept.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, of course, from what I thought was a very effective part 1 cliffhanger, we then dive into part 2, where the Doctor basically needs to get at the Sontarans now to find out what's going on. So he goes off and finds Luke's academy, where they've been, where the guy who's been helping the Sontarans, and he uses it to what is he doing with it now? I'm trying to remember exactly how this goes. He's got this plan where he's going to use this device to clean the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And the Sontarans teleport Donna up because she's in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
So then Donna has to sneak out of the TARDIS around the Sontaran ship and back of the neck of Sontaran with a rubber mallet.
Back of the neck.
And the Doctor does its clever thing, and it basically works. But right at the last moment, when the Doctor was going to sacrifice himself to remove the threat, Luke Rattigan has a redemption moment, and he basically nabs the controller and does it to them, and then it's all Sontar ha boom, because you told me I was special and clever, but you were just lying to me to use me, and I can't stand that, so I'm going to kill you now. I'm a bit of an early SJW, really, that Luke Flanagan. You know, I mean, look at it from a 2023 light, you know. Yeah, I can always see that one self-destructing. But I mean, it's a really good rip-along kind of plot, you know, and it has a good old big dramatic ending.
Yeah.
I don't think it could ask for more, really, wrapping up a story like this. I think this really delivered on its aims.
Yeah, I think it's a good ending.
What do you reckon, Golden Age Geek? Would you agree with that summary, or do you think part 2 is lacking, or is it a good conclusion?
No, I think it's a pretty good conclusion. Yeah, that's all I have really much to say about it. I think you've explained and commented on it very well. I mean, you know, I don't think it was rushed in any way. I mean, you know, you could say in some aspects it was a little bit rushed, but I mean, I think it's pretty much fine. Really, there's nothing that stood out to me as, you know, as immediately wrong with it.
We'd have been happy to get a lot more stories like this during the Tribunal era, wouldn't we? We'd have gone, oh, Doctor Who's not too bad. You know? Yeah, but no.
To be fair,
it's also worth pointing out these 2 episodes were directed by Douglas McKinnon.
Yes.
Who was in the running as a potential Chibnall replacement.
Yeah.
His name was definitely being mentioned. I don't know if you remember, but on his Twitter, he was putting up little boxes, little pictures of TARDISes and stuff.
He was,
you know, and I mean, Douglas McKinnon was definitely showing an interest, and he's done some great stuff since. Let me just pull him up for a moment, and I'll remind myself of what he did a series recently, which was really creditable. Was he involved in Discovery of Witches? I think he might have been.
Yeah, I mean, he's done Good Omens. He's done Line of Duty.
That's it, Good Omens. Yes, thank you. That's
and
he's doing the second series of Good Omens now. He's done Sherlock.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
you know, a talented man.
Definitely.
A talented man.
Definitely. Yeah. So I could definitely see, but that he may be a future name to watch.
Potentially, yes, potentially indeed.
Yeah, so you know, worth noting that that this is what he was doing as a director, and he's been much more involved on the show running side now. And I think Good Omens Series 2 has been especially involved because Neil Gaiman is also now doing the Sandman series.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know, it must bear in mind RTD has made it clear he ain't coming back forever. He's coming back to right the ship.
Yeah.
I mean, although we kind of reckon that he's going to be around for 3 years.
Yeah.
He's kind of putting out that message now. At first, he wasn't being solid that he was going to stay past Series 14.
Yeah, but he seems
so you know, and there's still a chance that they may another showrunner may come in, and Douglas McKinnon is definitely a potential.
Yes, indeed.
And then, so let's do some scores then for some Tyrants. I liked it a lot. I did, but you know, it wasn't on the same level emotionally as either Pompeii or the Ood.
No.
So it didn't strike me as quite so good. So I'm going to go for both stories overall B.
Right. I will give it a B minus.
B minus.
B minus.
I will go with B minus as well.
So just what are the what's the minuses? Not questioning your score, lads. I just want to know what the extra bit of minus is.
I thought personally, the second part was just, it didn't feel as good as the first.
Right.
And it was just sort of, and as the problem is, as usually with a lot of Doctor Who episodes, it gets kind of rushed near the end. And it was just a lot of just too many conveniences, and it just didn't feel just good enough. So that's why it dropped down to a minus for me. There you go.
I pretty much feel the same way. And also, it's not something that one of my main criticisms is not necessarily something that I could just tie, just to this episode, but plenty of other episodes, is that my favorite kind of storytelling is sort of more character based, and the second part of this one felt more sort of, let's have a cool action packed.
It wasn't focused on character, for definitely it was focused on action. I think it's also a problem for two-parters in New Who.
Yeah, I
They're
agree.
two-parters. Because, I mean, a story like this would have been a four-parter in Classic.
Yep.
And that gives it a bit more space, even with the same runtime. There are stories in Classic where the ending isn't really that good.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually end that well. But the story itself on the whole is still considered a classic because of how good the meat in the middle is.
Yes, exactly.
You know? So, I mean, no matter how much you build up a threat in Doctor Who, most of the time you're going to be pushing the reset button.
Yeah.
You know, the threat is dealt with, the threat ends.
Yeah.
So you've always got to find a way to end the threat. And, you know, that isn't always the easiest part of the story. You know, building up a threat is much easier from a writing point of view than actually successfully resolving it. You know, and I think that, I mean, I think if this was a classic story, I would like to have kept all the action, but to added in another couple of episodes of character. And I think this one could have been really, really great. Because the resources are all there, you know, and I think for what New Who did with it, for a two-parter with the pacing and everything, I'm very happy with it.
Fair enough.
So we'll beat all round. Right, no, and then but Martha stayed on board.
Yes.
For another trip with in fact a completely unplanned trip.
Yes.
Because the TARDIS just takes off all on its own.
Yes, he's gone. It's off on his trips.
Like, what the hell? I'm not doing it. Doctor, get back to the HQ. Next week.
Yes, indeed.
The Doctor's daughter.
Yes.
Well. You know, I mean, talk about get your end away, you naughty old Time Lord.
Literally, indeed.
Know? Yeah, a bit of the old Casanova complex. What's this all going to be about? We thought, waiting for this episode to come up the next week after the next time trailer. But in fact, this question of who is the Doctor's daughter is answered almost straight away.
Yeah, pretty much instantly.
Because after the TARDIS's wild ride, the Doctor, Donna, and Martha spill out into these underground tunnels of some futuristic place, and immediately gets his hand stuck in a machine that takes his DNA and then makes a soldier out of it.
Pop! As if magic. Yep, there we go.
You know, it's like 20 years of parenting hitting you around the back of the head in 1 minute.
Instantly, yeah.
Most of us who are parents will all have a shudder of horror at that idea. But yes, just out the back, it just absolutely good way to go. You know, bang, 20 years of parenting.
Yes, welcome.
Oh, so dear, we've got it's a very sci-fi MacGuffins lead into the story.
Absolutely.
And then straight away from there, you know, it's all about, oh no, we've been locked up and taken prisoner. So what's going on? There's a war going on, and there's the humans, and they're fighting someone called the Half. And no one really seems to know much about the Half, but they sure seem really bad. And you know, and then, you know, as is usual, the Doctor investigates.
As he always does.
Martha gets split off from them and ends up encountering the Half and having to travel across the blasted surface of this frankly appalling planet.
It's not a good
planet. You know, and the Half that helps her sacrifices himself for her. And that really upset Martha. And she also discovers that the half know as little about what the heck's really going on as the humans.
Yeah.
While Donna is taking note of the filing system.
Yes, of course.
And she's recognizing that there's all these coded numbers everywhere, all the way through this complex. And the Doctor's putting pieces together. And he's finding out that Jenny is far too much like him for his comfort.
Yes.
And at first he wants nothing to do with her, but then he realizes that he can't ignore her.
No.
But he has a responsibility to her. and so this reluctant parenting, and also in a way the reluctance to let go of the security of knowing he's the last.
Yeah.
His fear of what it would mean for it all to start again.
Well, yeah, because exactly.
Yeah, fascinating, really,
Fascinating.
to get a look under the bonnet of what's going on with the Doctor's character. But then it all resolves where we find out that this whole war has actually only been going on for a week.
Yeah.
Doesn't exactly land that concept,
No.
and that these clone armies don't know what they're fighting for, and let's all make peace and be nice to each other. Hooray!
Hey, done, finished. If only our wars were as quick as that.
That's basically the story.
Yeah. For all intents and purposes.
Goldenagedgeek, how did you take this one? The Doctor's daughter.
This one elaborates on many of the characters. Of course, we see Martha, and we commented on the last stream when we talked about her in series 3 about her kindness and willingness to help other people, going above and beyond, and that is what people who work, maybe as doctors, people in that sort of industry have to do, and we do really see that on display. She has this helpless creature who, for all intents and purposes, is essentially trying to kill her. We find out later that's not exactly the case, but they are very much the enemy. And even though they are considered to be the enemy by the people that we meet throughout the episode, she's still willing to help them because she sees someone who is hurt and she isn't going to let them suffer. So I do really like that aspect to it. The Doctor is a character that we shouldn't really know too much about, and the mystery of the Doctor is what sort of drives the show forward. There are some questions that should never be answered, and I would hope that some writers would understand that. Obviously not. We found that out the hard way. But the subtlety about the Doctor and the fact that he did have children, and it isn't gone into so much, but there are little lines here and then when he says to Donna, like, I've done this sort of thing before, and she's asking him about that, and she's like, are you a father? And he goes, not anymore. And just those very little moments like that just add so much to the Doctor without, throwing so much exposition at you. There's enough for you to get a bit more of an understanding of the Doctor, but it's left, it's still got that mystery to it where you can make up the rest in your head, and that's how it should be. There are some things that should just be left to the imaginations of the audience. And yeah, I think this episode just comments so well on the Doctor as a character and a person.
Well, of course, there is more going on in this story than meets the eye, because the reality of what was going on set is, it has a strange surrealism, because the Doctor's daughter actually becomes the Doctor's wife.
Well, yes, indeed.
Because David Tennant IRL married George Moffat. This is at the end of the story, the Doctor has been putting out, it's a bit cringe how moralising the Doctor gets here. I tend to agree. It is a bit overblown. But also setting up a revolver, I never would. Wouldn't you? We'll find out.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so a bit of the old foreshadowing there. Let's take a bit of foreshadow on it, Russell. But then finally, Jenny effectively regenerates in a way.
Yeah.
When they think that she's dead, her cells regenerate, and she takes off in a rocket ship to go and help the universe. And we've never heard from her since.
And before we go any further, ladies and gentlemen, can I introduce Jack to the stream?
Hello, Jack. Well, you're just in time. Come on, give us your hot take on the Doctor's daughter.
What are the chances I would land on this one? Okay. This is next. No, I'm just going to say it is the worst episode in the whole RTD era.
Oh, there you go. We've missed you, Jack.
I'm sorry. No, I rewatched it with my cousin. I couldn't remember much about it, which says everything. And we were both just sat there looking at each other like, do you want to go do literally anything else? So like, yep. And it was awful. Just from the plot to Martha being there when she doesn't have to be and being annoyingly stupid and getting the Hath killed because she's a selfish, can't say it on stream. Oh no, I can't reach you because if I put my toe in the mud, I'll sink. Oh, so I'm just going to stand there when you're only centimeters away from me and just let you sink.
Yeah, but it was quite cold.
Right?
Well,
bless
quite.
her.
Bless
her. Oh my god! And she's meant to be a soldier. Christ Almighty!
I don't think she was meant to be a soldier, was she? I mean, a doctor.
Well, at the finale, she was. She was dressed up in a uniform.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just saying.
Awesome.
But yeah, for some reason, she's really annoying in that story when she was actually really fine in the previous story. So I don't understand why that happened. Jenny's cool, but I think she needs. I don't know if she has her own Big Finish adventure.
Pass. I don't know.
I don't know, but her origin just doesn't make sense either. I mean, the Doctor growing as much attachment to her as he does when she's literally come from a machine just doesn't make any sense.
Okay,
But of course, we all know that David really enjoyed the kissing scene so much that the director had to say, "Hey guys, cut, guys." And then they went on to marry. So it's the Hath are cool. I like the Hath's design.
The Hath are cool, yeah.
But I just it's bland, forgettable. Next to Partners in Crime, the worst story of the season.
Well, I'm so glad you're back, Jack.
I also want to mention General Cobb, who's played by Nigel Terry, I believe.
I think it was.
Who, I'm a big fan of his portrayal of King Arthur in the epic Excalibur.
Yes.
I mean, that is, if no one's ever seen that movie, my God, what a shouty film. But a shouty, shiny film.
Yes, it
certainly
is.
But it's certainly everybody should experience it at least once because Nigel Terry is fantastic in that.
Oh, he is. He's outstanding in it.
Unfortunately, General Cobb didn't really give him that much, and I believe he passed on not long afterwards. I think one of his last roles. So it's an honourable mention to the guest star. I think we can sum this up as a story which its ambition it was greater than its reach.
Yeah,
there was certainly no one can deny it's an ambitious story. Just maybe a little bit too much going on, and lacking a clarity, and also don't stop to think about it too hard. So it's one of those, and I would tend to agree it's one of the weakest episodes of series 4, and I'm going to go with a C.
A C. I will go for a D plus.
D plus.
D plus. Not my favourite one. Not my favourite one.
I will say C plus for me.
C plus for Jack. Goldenagedgeek. How do you feel about it?
That was Goldenagedgeek.
Oh, that was Golden. Oh, sorry. Hang on.
Go on, Jack.
Jack, don't be Goldenagedgeek. Tell me what your score is.
It's quite awkward because I'm supposed to be a Russell T Davies era fan, but you guys keep catching me at the worst episodes. I don't know what it is.
We didn't tell you when to IBT. So
we did.
D minus for me.
D minus. There you go.
D minus. All right. This wasn't the best. Moving on into far sunnier, happier climes. Because we're going to take a trip back 1926 and a dinner party hosted by Lady Edison, where the Doctor and Martha get sucked into the mystery of the unicorn and the wasp.
Yes, the wasp.
Two things going for this story right from the start. Number one, director Graham Harper.
Yep.
Number two, writer Gareth Roberts.
Indeed.
And we'll
never see his genius again.
We may recall that Unicorn and the Wasp was cancelled from being part of the Doctor Who COVID watch-longs because of the Gareth Roberts-ness of the writing.
Wait, they actually did that? They cancelled it?
They bullied out of actually showing it on the watch-long.
I'm so glad I never took part.
And then cancelled. That's correct, isn't it, Gobby?
Yeah, absolutely right.
So you're never going to get stories like this anymore, then?
It was ridiculous.
Well, never say never. I mean, I would love for Gareth to be able to write for the show again.
Yeah, because he
you
is.
know, I don't know anything about the reality of that situation. And the one thing I will say about Gareth is he's very professional, and he keeps his shit away from his public persona, and he doesn't say anything critical on his Twitter.
No, it's very neutral.
So he doesn't talk about fandom or how he feels about how certain parts of fandom still act towards him.
Yes,
I can think of one particular JBot account which has got a complete obsession with targeting Gareth Roberts. So it's very much an ongoing thing. But this is the good old days, and a delightful script diving right into the heart of all the historical tropes. Where the Doctor is going to meet none other than Agatha Christie.
Good old Agatha Christie.
Yeah, so this is Doctor Who does Whodunit with all the trimmings and the sort of story I might even be able to get my mum to watch.
Yes, it was one you could get people to watch. Yes, but it's got Agatha Christie in it.
So in terms of the plot, it's a murder mystery plot.
Exactly.
So there are murders. It's mysterious, and we follow it through. But we eventually find that the unicorn is a gem thief, but the wasp is a giant metamorphosizing alien wasp. The Doctor ends up finding out, the tragedy of Vesper form and how it became locked in this human form. And in the end, the creature dies in such a way as to cause Agatha Christie to suffer her infamous bout of amnesia. And therefore, locks everything into established historical events very nicely with a bow.
Yes, it did. It did. There
was lots of Charles Cha and Charleston all along the way. So I suppose it really depends. Do you like this kind of thing?
Indeed.
Do you like this kind of thing, Jack?
I absolutely love this story.
Yeah.
I think it's not something you ever think will work with sci-fi, like a murder mystery meets sci-fi, but I think it works really well. And I don't know if we can all just appreciate how good the CGI on the Wasp is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you compare it to today's standards, well, yeah, I suppose you could say. But as a kid, I thought that looks like a giant wasp, and I'm really afraid of wasps. So
it was very important to sell the episode, and it did.
Yeah,
I agree. It was a very important effect. If it had been a bad effect, if the wasp in this had looked as dodgy as Lazarus the previous year, we could be looking at this story very differently.
Can you imagine if it was a classic story? It would look like the Wirren, but with wings.
Sylvester McCoy's polygonal asteroids. Can we say more?
Yeah. But no, the CGI on that was brilliant for the time. Sometimes people forget that it's time is a thing.
What about Goldenagedgeek? How did you find this one?
Well, I always love a good murder mystery. I always love having to, because most of the time when you watch entertainment, you're just sort of seeing things unfold. But with murder mysteries, you're able to make your own assumptions and conclusions. So I do like that. And the scene between the Doctor and Donna when he's just been poisoned and he's trying to tell her what he needs, always cracks me
so
up.
hilarious.
Comedy gold.
Comedy gold. It is brilliant.
Again,
What's that?
Tennant and Tate getting to do some nonsense that really sells it.
It was brilliant. Yeah, salt.
I love the bit with the salt. Is like, what is? I need something salty. What's that? Salt. That's too salty. Oh, that's too salty.
What did he say? Like, was it anchovies or something? I can't remember it. What he
I can't remember what it was, but yeah, it was too salty.
Pickles or something, wasn't it? Pickles.
Yeah, it was. It was awesome. Absolutely brilliant.
Good. I'd say that's one of Tennant's best performances. He just makes it work so well, and he also really plays the series. I don't know if anyone picked this up, but he is a very good Sherlock character.
Yeah.
Tennant
really sells it for me. He could be. I think he could play Sherlock. I think he's got that in his acting range.
Of course he could. Of course he could. I mean, he's played serial killers and all sorts.
And
I
think this
saw
is-
I saw a show. I can't. God damn it, the name of it escapes me. But it was on just last year where Tennant was playing a vicar. It was on.
Oh.
It was a BBC show, and he ends up
Oh, I know. Yeah.
shoving his son's tutor down the flight of steps and locking her up in the basement because there's a complete mix-up with his verger, who gives him a data stick of bad porn. I think we'll leave it at that. And there's the vicar character thinks that this tutor is going to think that's his son's, and because of that, it all leads into these 4 episodes of deadliness. And if you see Tennant's acting in that, I mean, the word range it's not good enough to encompass what this man can accomplish as an actor.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to give too much credit to one particular actor because I feel all actors have got their merits, but Tennant's in the superclass in an acting suit. He's one of the greatest talents of his generation. It's just true.
I believe that show was called Inside Man.
That's the one. That's it. Yes. Brilliant. That was a great.
But I mean, I watched that. That was only on last year, I think. I mean, that's quite recently. But
yes,
but there's lots of other things that Tennant's done. He's just fantastic.
Well, he's
his accomplishment.
He really
I'm sure an actor might say he's been lucky. He had very good fortune in his career, and every actor needs good fortune.
Yep. I mean, I just finished watching him in that. Can't say his name. Litvinenko, the guy who got poisoned.
Yes,
absolutely brilliant in that. His Russian accent's quite good, actually. To be fair to him, he's good in that as well. He's a very talented actor. He really is.
Well, it's about as convincing as his English accent, of course, isn't it?
Well, yes, because I remember forget the day he went. I think it was he spoke with a Scottish accent, and that was the first time I even realised he was Scottish. So it just shows you the skill of the man. I didn't know he was Scottish.
Well, it's like in Tooth and Claw when you think the doctor's putting on a Scottish accent, but no, it's actually the other way around. That's him talking normally.
Ironic in that context. Yeah, ironic.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, let's do some scores for Silence of the Library. No, let's not do that. Let's do some scores for Unicorn and the Wasp. I'm going to come out with my B again.
I'll have to give you the B. I'll have to give you the B
again for Gobby.
Yeah.
Jack, what's your score?
Oh, I'm gonna have to say B plus.
Nice.
It's one of my favourite historicals.
B plus, Goldenagedgeek.
I will go with a B plus as well.
Oh, it's B's all around.
Yeah.
Gareth, you're getting silver stars all over your collar, mate.
Yes.
Well done. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, this series just doesn't stop because we're cracking into another 2-parter. And who's back again? Oh, of course, it's Stephen Moffat's pen is back again.
Yes, indeed.
But this time, he's demanding that there's silence in the library.
Indeed.
This one traumatized me when I was a kid.
Excellent.
There you go.
Absolutely. I mean, Moffat.
I had to have a nightlight for a week. Not even
look
joking.
at what you did. Moffat, look at what you did.
You traumatized him.
Every single shadow was out to nibble Jack's toes. I think this is the most extraordinary 2-parter of the RTD era, really. Because you could put this together and slap it on a movie screen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think this story in particular is one that kind of seems to me to transcend the limits of television. Because it just strikes me, it just works so well. It's so complete.
Yeah. It's a great story.
But I mean, the essence of it is that the Doctor and Donna answer the old psychic distress paper because the Doctor gets a message to come to the library. The library being the largest library in the history of ever, which takes up an entire moon.
An entire planet, yeah, massive.
Yeah. And they land in the bowels of the library and discover the library is deserted.
Mm.
And for something very creepy went on around here.
Just slightly.
And as they're exploring, they encounter an expedition who've just landed on the planet by rocket ship.
Yep.
An expedition being led by one Professor River Song.
Yep.
Archaeologist. And then they discover that the shadows are alive and hungry.
Very hungry.
Piranhas of the air.
Yes,
Piranhas of the air. Right. So there's so much to unpack just with that, isn't there? You know, in terms of how much this brought to the show, you know. Obviously, River Song was to become a mainstay character for Moffat's era.
Yeah.
And he would have known that he was due to take over at the time that this went in. So he was setting up his own era by establishing River Song here.
Yep.
So I mean, that's this is the start of something that would become a major thread of the years to follow. The horror aspect of this was really high.
Oh god!
If the shadows touch you, they get in your suit and return you to skeleton.
Yep.
But then there's this clever conceit of this device on your collar which preserves your thoughts. But then takes on the horrific aspect of being an endless repeat of the last thing that person was thinking. But then becomes all the more sinister. Hey, who turned out the lights?
God.
Hey, who nicked me cup of tea?
Yeah.
Imagine that being the same thing and going round again against the very last thought of the fella who was sat in that chair.
Oh, yeah. Hang on. Epic Sadako comment here, boys. At the time, I feared we wouldn't seem to have followed up after this. In hindsight, it might have been better if she wasn't.
So true.
Yeah, probably.
So true.
I mean, we might have said the same if that was true with Jenny. Oh, dear.
Indeed.
No, I mean, I don't agree with that overall view of River Song, but we'll have to discuss it more at an appropriate juncture.
Of course.
We can't discuss the entire River's character here. But what we can say is this fascinating concept of somebody who knows the Doctor who the Doctor doesn't know.
Yeah.
And who's got a personality dialed all the way up, able to tease and cheek back and wind up and play with the Doctor.
Oh, massively.
And make it clear this is somebody who knows him so well, who knows all of his buttons, but also, knows him with such affection. And then, Donna's like, do you know this woman? And then her going, oh, you're Donna. And that's a little bit, so that part too, and this was all being slathered in just into part one.
Yeah, it certainly was. A lot was put in this episode.
And then as it developed, we get the cliffhanger where Donna gets saved, i.e., turned into a stone face on a thingy.
Yep.
But we discover that saved actually does mean saved. It means saved to a hard drive.
Yep.
And that the people in the library, they're not dead. Nope. They've been saved as patterns, but they can't be brought back as long as the Vashta Narada threat isn't dealt with. But then we also discover that the Vashta Narada are not trying to be evil, they're just being who they are, and it's not their fault that they're there because somebody pulped their bloody homeworld and turned it into books.
Yes, very nice of them.
Which I think is like, eminent domain, right to reside. You can kind of see the Vasta Mirada's point.
Yes.
And yeah, that was a clever twist. It was indeed
clever.
a very clever twist.
Very clever.
And it's kind of basically the story is resolved through negotiation.
Yeah, which is how it should be done.
And negotiating as a truce to allow the humans to withdraw and the library to be left to the shadows.
Yep.
But I mean, interesting that for all of the Doctor's bravado, here's a monster he couldn't defeat.
No, he couldn't.
Only negotiate with.
Yep. Yeah, he couldn't threaten this one.
Perhaps this is why we haven't seen the Vasta Mirada again. They're just too strong as a concept.
Well, yeah, clearly.
So, I mean, I can see why Jack had to have a nightlight.
Oh, God, yeah, it was very scary.
Tell us about it, Jack. What really kind of got into your noggin? Because, when you're young, there's got to be an image or something that just gets stuck, isn't there?
Yeah.
So was it the skeleton in the spacesuit? What was it?
No, because I like stuff like that genuinely. But the thing that got to me was actually when Donna being in the fake world, and then she realizes that her children aren't real, and then Murray Gold's music just goes through me like.
Did that cause you to have existential dread over your own existence, sort of thing?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, heavy dude. This is. We've got to get the psychological stuff in there with young Doctor Who fans. It's the way we get them.
But it's funny because when Miss Evangelista removes her cover and her eyes are all big and her lips look funny. Nowadays we'd be laughing at that because we can mess around with filters on our phone. But back then it's like, I don't know if we had that back then, so it was creepy back then. But it's kind of funny to look at now.
Oh, it was definitely uncanny.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah,
that was
dwelling in the
absolutely
uncanny valley.
Me.
Can we just say this was 15 years ago, Gobby?
I know, 50. Stop it. It was a long time ago. 15 years ago. Bloody hell. That's a long time. I remember 15 years ago. It was a lot more simpler.
Sorry, Jack. Older gentleman's moment. Carry on.
Yeah. Drifted off into memory lane.
Well, no, yeah, and the shadows were creepy, but I thought they were quite cool once they got in the suits. I think the creepiest bit was more when you couldn't see them as anything, like when they were just shadows. But when
guys, I'd like you to know we have a volunteer in the audience.
Oh yes,
one of the chat. As basically, as far as I can see, volunteered himself. The Time Prophet says it didn't scare me. So he is now a man to stick in a suit and push forward, proffering a chicken drumstick.
Yeah,
he is the man to take on the shadows.
Yeah, you got points. You got points.
Best of luck, mate.
I mean,
rather you and me.
Keep in mind, I was 8 years old. Okay, so you can't really make the comparison.
Absolutely. I also want to find out about the trauma on another young mind. The Goldenagedgeek. How did you find this story?
So the moment where Donna lifts up the veil of that woman and her face is distorted, that was the one moment that scared me. Like, I don't know why. As you say, today we would look at something like that and laugh at it because we do it all the time for humor on our phones and stuff. But back then, that was just awful. I don't really know how to describe it. And now looking back on it, I have no clue why it sort of frightened me. But yeah, there's an uncanny, sort of aspect to it. But the entire episode as a whole, I do enjoy it. I always like episodes that, I mean, I'm a fan of historicals as well, but I also do like when they explore these sort of futuristic cities and I like those sort of concepts. I just find them, visually stunning. I don't really mind the CGI back then. I just like the idea of it being set in that sort of setting. But the idea of shadows attacking you is, again, Doctor Who doing what it does best. It's taking the mundane and it's making it incredibly scary. And as we've just explained, it was very scary for us back then. So they succeeded in that.
What it used to do best.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
I just think it's
I remember the
fascinating
day.
because I mean I would have thought it would be the people being turned into skeletons in their suits would have been the scariest thing. But
No,
you
I
both actually picked out the same moment, and I wouldn't have, as an adult watching this, I wouldn't have thought that's what's going to get the kids. So it's really fascinating. What
It
you
is.
both say,
Brilliant.
you know.
Yeah.
I think,
You know,
as a kid, it's more the stress to the characters that's traumatic. But like the
Possibly,
monsters
yeah.
themselves, you look at them, and you go, "That's cool," you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's more like when you see Donna, just her acting. Can I just commemorate Catherine Tate's acting in this story?
Mm.
you can,
Like,
yes,
along with Murray Gold's music, it's just it's traumatizing, honestly, even today. And it's why it's not that I dislike the story, but I don't think I can give it a high rank because of how much it just messed me up.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
That's interesting one. I quite diamond this Doctor Who story because it was too bloody spooky.
Yeah.
You know, that's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I mean, the River Song thing is definitely going to distort how some people see this, because if you can't stand River Song, you're going to have a lot of trouble standing this.
Indeed.
So there is a bit of a Marmite factor. But I loved it at the time, and looking back at it now, and just how clever the story was, and how well it worked, and how cohesive it felt as a two-parter, which is something the Doctor Who scripts have always struggled with. But this one really did seem to pull it off. I can only go for an A. In fact, I'm going to go A+ for the two.
Oh, he's gone for it. It's the plus has
I'm
come
going
out.
to stick the plus on because this is just so good.
Yeah, I'll give it an A. At the time, I didn't have a problem with River Song because it was the first time I'd seen her. It's only afterwards that you kind of think, oh, yeah, okay, fair enough. But the unknown, the being scared of what's hiding just out of the sight, it's always it always gets you. And I just thought it was a really good episode, but an A for me. I'll give it an A.
Jack, what do you reckon?
I mean, I want to give it. It just scared me. I don't like watching it. But
he's terrified of
I
it.
have to.
So like an A for trauma, E for PTSD, you know, something like that, you know.
I'm gonna give it an A- just because I don't
A-.
like revisiting it as much as other people do, because it
Thanks
still
for the
manages to
scarred
creep me out.
psyche, Moffat. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
yeah.
Thanks.
It's hilarious in a way, isn't it?
It's nice to hear that Doctor
I
Who.
mean, I've seen some pieces of media that I would never particularly want to see again. Like certain horror films are not my taste.
It's just a shame
For
Moffat couldn't be
example,
this good in his era.
Well, this is it. When you look at it like that, you wonder why he couldn't have been as good as this, because this was a brilliant.
There was a William Dafoe film called Antichrist. That I never quite got around to spinning the disc in my player, and then the disc has gone missing now, so I can't watch it. I've lost the disc somewhere. But you know, I mean, that was a piece of media that almost intimidated me too much to actually even open. So I know where Jack's coming from.
That's a scary film, the Antichrist.
I think it's to the credit of Doctor Who that it managed to have that kind of effect within the limitations of broadcasting standards.
Well, yes, because that's the thing. They actually managed to get it to fit.
I suppose it's a good thing I actually missed the broadcasting of Blink. I didn't see that till 2 years later. Because if this episode
you might not have watched Series 4 at all. Yeah, absolutely.
Probably not. No, I'd have just been like, help.
That'd be done. I'll be finished.
I Goldenagedgeek, go give us your take on the whole thing.
This story is easily an A+ for me. Again, talking about the Moffat sort of aspects to this episode, I feel he does what he always does best in the Russell era, not so much in his own era. At the end scene, when the Doctor realizes that there is a bit in River's screwdriver that enables him to upload her mind to the library, I love that scene of the 10th Doctor being the action hero that he is, with his coat flapping in the background.
Yeah.
Running and
dive down a tunnel of energy. I mean, coolness factor 10, isn't it?
Because when you look at something like The Empty Child, where the Doctor's like, everyone lives, and in this episode, it's sort of the same theme, sort of regurgitated again, that, you know, people are going to die, it's always going to happen, but not today. There can be a day when something good happens for once.
Yeah,
and then it just happened all the time, and people were like, "Can something bad happen for once, please?"
Oh, yeah, it's true. This is true.
I can't understand. Like, when Moffat got to work on his own, was he constantly telephoning Russell? Like, I'm just not really that confident when you're not sat next to me, telling me everything I'm doing is good. And Russell just like, "Darling, listen to me. You're doing everything perfect. I promise you. You just need to. You just believe
I
in
look.
yourself."
I think.
Brilliant.
Moffat got saddled with the weight of showrunner, you know, so that when he was writing this, when he was writing Blink, when he was writing Girl in the Fireplace, when he was writing Dr. Dances, all he had to do was think about his own script. He didn't even have to think about tying it into the series as a whole, because any connecting stuff would have been done for him. But when he was writing as showrunner, and the episodes that he was writing were always the pivotal episodes to set up the arcs. So then he got caught up not just with the script, with the story right in front of him, but the arc, setting up the arc, you know, and setting up the mystery box. Because unfortunately he bought into the mystery box way of storytelling, and it did undo him after a while. But you know, and I think that impacts his later scripts. You know, and that too clever for its own goodness comes in there more than anything else. Because with this one, it was clever and delightful. It wasn't too clever for its own good.
Yeah.
But it's when he was having to do his style of writing, his style of the show, which was much more of a fantasy style of the show, and you know, trying to do these big meta concepts, but also trying to make it engaging enough and clever enough people can guess it right away, and all the rest of that. I just think it rotted his own back.
All I'm going to say is, like, if you guys think I'm bad now, just wait till we get to Moffat's era.
I mean,
well, you know, we don't want to spend their time now talking about what's to come.
I mean,
but
Sadiko covered it, I think, quite rightly there. And Moffat was great when he was under limits, but prevented him getting indulgent. Once he became the showrunner, the limits were removed, and he wasn't as good. Which I think pretty much sums it up. That was his problem.
Absolutely true.
Yeah,
and I think it totally reflects on how we feel about the very recent news that Moffat will be writing for season 14.
Yeah, because it is
you know, and some people are going, "Oh God, no, not again," and other people are going, "Great, we'll get a good self-contained Moffat story again." And if it meant more Silence of the Library, or a more Blink, I'm all for it. So let's find out. Does Moffat still have totally epic episodes of Doctor Who is still in him? Well, you never know. He might.
You never know.
You never know. He might. Yeah. So, did you give a score overall, Goldenagedgeek? Did you A+, wasn't it? Yeah,
A+ easily for me.
We are very much done, I think, with the library, and that's just as well because time's ticking on. It's almost midnight.
Yes, almost midnight indeed.
Now, talk about the ooky, spooky, creepy, down your neck ooky factor. Midnight has a reputation.
Indeed. It does have one.
The story is very simple. The Doctor and Donna are visiting a planet called Midnight. It's a very, very beautiful planet. There's just one problem. It's completely lethal. Because it's so beautiful because of the impact of extremely lethal solar radiation. So nobody can survive on the surface of this planet unshielded.
Yep.
But while Donna's by the pool, having a massage and stuff, and you know, whatever ladies do when they're relaxing by pools, the Doctor decides he's going to take a little visit. He's going to take a tour on this bus. He's going to drive across the surface of Midnight and see the sights. But it all starts well enough. He meets all the other passengers, but en route, there's problems start to appear. the system, the shuttle stops for no reason anyone can find, and then there's a knocking on the side of the cabin, and then just where that's starting to freak people out, suddenly the cabin gets completely torn away, and then the rest of the story resolves around this alien influence parroting people and speaking at first after they speak, repeating them, but then slowly and slowly getting faster and faster until they're repeating them before they speak, and it's like a kind of possession. And the other passengers' fear is spiking to such horrific levels that they've decided it's all the doctor's fault, and the best thing to do is to throw him out into the lethal radiation.
Yeah. This
is the one where everything about the Doctor, all of his strategies, his tricks, his ways of convincing people that he's on their side, all of his centuries and centuries of experience fail him.
Yep. It just doesn't work.
And he experiences a level of fear he hasn't felt in a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what this story is all about. Jack, tell me about Midnight.
It's claustrophobic, it's character driven, it's Tennant's best performance. It benefits not having Donna around to provide the comic relief, because there is no comic relief to this story because it's completely serious. It's imaginative, as in it lets the audience just imaginations run wild. We never get to find out what the creature is, which is great. Like I say, the performance of the lady who's possessed by it is chillingly good. And yeah, I honestly struggle to find fault with this one. Some people have said the side characters are a bit bland and generic. I actually really like them. We get to know more about them in the opening part of the episode, like with just simple conversations. You learn about their personality, what they're like.
That's part of the horror of it, isn't it? You know, that these are, you know, very unassuming, bland type people, but push come to shove, suddenly they want to murder you. Gobby, I'm going to mute for a moment. I'll let the boys carry on.
Okay, no worries. Well, we'll move on to Goldenagedgeek. What did you think, mate?
I love the sort of base under siege stories that Doctor Who does. I feel like that is what any sort of mystery show, because although Doctor Who is a sci-fi show, there is a huge layer of mystery to it, whether it's the main character of the Doctor or the villains that they're facing, and sometimes the scariest villains are the ones that we don't really find out much about. So I feel like this episode did very well, and I love the comment on sort of the human reaction to finding something new, because humans fear what they don't understand, and this is a villain that not even the Doctor understands, or the Doctor doesn't even understand it come to the end of the episode. So that sort of comment that humans need to not be totally accepting of something that is new, because of course we find out that the threat is malicious, but humans need to not overreact when they see something that is from the unknown, and they do need to put their brains together and not let their emotions get the best of them, otherwise they will turn on each other and ultimately the threat will win. So it's all about humans trying to stick together and not trying to fall apart because of the anxiety of the situation.
But I love that, though. I love it because even though this entity is so evil, it causes the people to turn on themselves. It doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah. It just has to sit there.
It makes me wonder, if the Doctor had got thrown out, would the entity have carried on doing that until everyone had killed each other and there was no one left on the, you know, the bus or whatever you want to call it?
Possible.
How far would this creature have gone? And it just kind of makes you think, oh, you wish you had more in many ways.
Yeah.
It's that sense of hunger, isn't it? You know, this creature is hungry for more than its environment. But whatever this form of life is, it's existed in this one place, desolate and alone, for unknowable amount of time. And its hunger to reach out beyond what's effectively been its prison. You know, and then, you know, what might an entity like that be capable of? but at the same time, is it evil? That's an interesting question. Because is it evil or is it nature with how this creature is acting?
Question.
Well, another thing.
Do we know that it hates? Do we know that it wants to destroy, or is it what it wants to? Is it that it covets? That it wants to possess?
Well, another thing that I noticed was it only seemed to want to get rid of the Doctor, and maybe it's because the creature, I don't know, you could say, analyzed that the Doctor was the only one that could harm it. It seemed to want to be amongst the rest of them, the humans. And the Doctor even says, maybe the next phase is becoming us. I don't want it becoming me. And, maybe the creature was like, I'm not after you, like, because you're a threat to me.
The Doctor's right. He's scared of what might happen if a creature became him.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I kind of imagine, if it hadn't have been thwarted by the brave sacrifice of the stewardess, then how far would it have gone? Indeed, I mean, would it have spread out through the cosmos, slowly taking everybody over until everybody became it? Really fascinating how a concept. It's great to have a concept, but the mind can just keep going, imagining more and more about it. Yeah, and that's what's always more effective when you're told less, not more. Is being able to fill in all the blanks. So the knack to good writing is knowing how little to tell your audience. And RTD certainly leaned heavily into that school of thought on this one. And I also understand that, creatively, this one will happen all kind of in at once. That it is one of RTD's creative weekends that banged out this script. So when you're able to write a 45-minute episode like that, it shows that it's based on a very sound central concept. And Russell needed something that was frankly cheap, because this was effectively a one-set story.
Yes,
and it was certainly one which was extremely demanding of the cast, more so than most of the Doctor Who scripts would have been.
Yeah.
And they rose to the challenge magnificently.
Oh, the acting of everybody was brilliant in this.
Its reputation as a story that stands out apart. When you get a story which is so good it stands apart from the season that it's part of, that it's something special. And Midnight has achieved that status, I would say.
I think it just goes to show that Doctor Who is the exact opposite of Hollywood MCU. You need all these CGI and explosions. Doctor Who is the exact opposite of that, and I think Midnight shows how you can have something so simplistic and small as just one room, a bunch of people, and a monster that you never even get to see, and you can make it one of the best stories in the whole show.
Well, you can have a sort of a cheap bottle show where some character stuff happens, and of course Star Trek, especially Next Generation, would do episodes like that a lot.
Yeah,
it'd be character development of the week, but then got reset for next week. Because that was the Star Trek way. But it can seem a bit mawkish and self-indulgent and all of those things. But it's because Doctor Who did that bottle show character episode, but actually went all out with it like this. And yes, Leslie Sharp was terrific, wasn't she?
I mean, there was another little thing about this episode.
Merlin was in it.
Because we had David Troughton, the son of Patrick Troughton, in it.
And Merlin.
Yeah. And Merlin. So,
this was before Merlin, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, the year before, I think.
The year before. So this was is a little breakout role before he got really noticed.
Yeah, I believe Merlin was from 2008 to 2012.
Oh, so it was the same year.
Well, yeah, same year.
There may be some crossover. We're not sure.
Yeah, 14.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, indeed.
But yeah, just goes to show, Gobby, you're looking at the wrong person. You should have been looking at the teenager, not the old man.
Well, yes, indeed. Indeed.
Look,
Yeah.
my uncle had a bad experience with him. Apparently, he's a git.
Well, there
Now,
you go.
who are we talking about? Merlin or
No, David Troughton. He's
David
very
Troughton?
full of
Ah,
himself.
well, this happens.
Well,
sadly.
you know, as you get older, you discover we all have bad days.
Yes. They just keep coming, though. That's
They
the
literally
problem.
keep coming. But I mean, Gobby will back me up here. You know, but there are days we go, okay, if you met me on that day, and that's the only version of me you ever know, you're not going to have a very good impression of me at all.
Yeah, you're really not going to like me.
You know, but I think part of the older or wiser part is developing a bit of a broader view that shows a little bit more mercy for our failings.
Yes, indeed.
You know, which is I think is what's so awful about why I call them the enfant terrible. You know,
Yes.
with the J bots, the SJWs, you know, they don't know what mercy is.
No.
They wouldn't know mercy for a human failing if it bit them, and of course it will bite them.
Of course, it always does.
Because they're young and they're barely out of nappies and they know fuck all about real life.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, have I started something
Good luck,
negative?
kid.
No, you haven't.
Sorry, no,
Exactly.
I just me going off on being an old man again.
Yeah.
But no, tell us about David Troughton, Gobby.
What about him?
What about him? Well, he was in the story. You mentioned it. Come on.
Yeah, it was
It's
just
your point.
Yeah, he was actually just one of the big characters. Who mentioned it now? Time Prophet mentioned it. That's why I thought it was wise to mention. He played Professor. Was it the Professor? The Professor Hobbs. He played.
Yes,
so he's just one of the little players because that little cast there. It's very hard to do a story where you're all confined like that, and I think.
But again, David Troughton acting in this was brilliant. You know, from the curmudgeonly old professor, we're more than happy to talk about all the guff he's up to becoming suspicious, to becoming paranoid, to becoming dangerous.
It's the whole episode,
and a character who's defined by his reason and his intelligence, who should be a natural ally for the Doctor,
but he isn't.
But he's not.
All he cared about was looking better than everyone else.
Yeah,
I hate him.
I was about to say that. That's what he wanted. He wanted to be the thing in the room all the time.
I love it when the Doctor shuts him down, when he's like, "Look, Professor, I appreciate that you're taking an interest, but maybe the universe has ideas of its own."
Well, yeah, exactly. So sit down and shut up.
Yeah, basically.
Well, that's all part of it. Of them all starting to grate on each other's nerves, isn't it? You know, I mean, the Doctor's not immune. The Doctor's being snippy and snappy too.
Yeah. The simple truth of the matter is, it's a fantastic example of humanity under pressure, under a microscope, because that's what people are like.
And a warning.
And a
warning,
big,
yeah.
Massive warning. And
when the shit goes down, watch your back.
Because people you think, are going to be, the people you can rely on turn out to be your worst enemy, and you have to be careful. But there you go, Eddie.
But also you've got the example of a stewardess, who's the opposite, who stands up, who stands up and takes responsibility for her duty to the people. It is definitely shows the best and worst of humanity. Absolutely. But I hope that no one's ever in a position where life goes helter skelter.
Let's hope not.
It's something that nobody should ever want or have to encounter. I think about people in Ukraine, for example. And how they're dealing with the normal rules of civility and civilization not being the same anymore. And they're living in a midnight situation. I'm all good. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
I do the best. I lost my thread now. Yeah, people in Ukraine. People in Ukraine. This is when having principles, having values, that's when they matter.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's easy to be a good person, to say the right things, to think the right things, when life is normal and there's no pressure.
No pressure.
But it's when things have gone wrong
Yep.
It's when people are scared and angry and frightened. It's when the chips are down. It's when lives are at stake. That's when you find out who people really are.
It's very true.
And that's when you find out the values that you hold and whether you really live by them.
Indeed.
So, there's a message of caution. And above all else, I suppose about hubris, about false pride, a false belief in your own goodness and how you might crumble put to the test. There's an appeal to always keep a certain humility in the lesson of Midnight.
Indeed.
As a story. And, just remarkably affecting and remarkably effective. I'm going to come out of it. I've got to A+ it.
Yep, I've got to give it.
I haven't got another score I can give it.
No, it is an A+. A+ all the way. Jack?
Yeah, A+, no question about it.
And Goldenagedgeek?
A+ as well.
That was coming.
Right.
We all knew that was coming.
Now, will it be the same for the next story? Because talking about reality going helter-skelter, suddenly it all turned left.
Yes, didn't half turn left.
And Albuquerque.
Yeah, and Albuquerque. Yeah.
Oh, come on. I was hoping more people would get that.
I got it. Right then, shall we turn left and find out what happens? Indeed.
I adore this story.
Ah.
I've always felt that it's one of the strongest science fiction stories of RTD's era.
Right. Okay.
Because the way that it handles causality and time, very much hard science fiction.
Yep.
And
it is clever. Alternate realities and things like that. Very good.
Well, it is the ultimate what if, and it starts with what if Donna hadn't gone back to save the Doctor during the Christmas invasion.
Yep.
And the setup for the story starts on this planet in this alien bazaar, where Donna is tricked into a sort of fortune teller's stall, and an alien time beetle jumps onto her back. And in doing so, is able to derail her time stream into this alternate version of reality, because it's parasitically feeding on the paradox caused.
Yep.
And as a result, Donna relives the last few years as if she hadn't saved the Doctor in The Runaway Bride.
Yep.
And then she sees all the consequences of the Doctor not being alive. It starts off with the death of Sarah Jane Smith and gang, trying to rescue the hospital from the moon from Smith and Jones. Then we hear that Captain Jack and Torchwood have gone up in smoke, stopping the Suntarans.
Yep.
Well, Jack would love.
And then disaster. The Titanic smashes into London,
destroys Buckingham
causing an atomic devastation.
There's a bit of a plot hole there, though.
Well, there is, but we'll come to that. And as a result of that, British society destabilizes, and we turn into the thems and the us's, and most of the country are turned into refugees, and then we start picking on the different and the other. And things go down a very dark route very quickly.
Yeah, because down the rabbit hole very fast.
So, not only is this a universe without the Doctor, but this is a universe which is very swiftly falling apart without the Doctor. And then even more so because now the goddamn stars are going out.
Yes, they're all turning themselves off.
Suddenly, this blonde turns up with big teeth.
With very big teeth.
Suspiciously looking like she's had some work done.
Just maybe.
Who says, aha, well, we might be able to help. and of course, Mrs. Rose, fresh from the alternate parallel dimension, and she's trying to deal with this cosmic level screw up of everything going very, very wrong, and she knows that Donna is part of it, and the TARDIS is in the hands of UNIT, and they're trying to wake it up to at least cannibalize its abilities, and they have a very crude form of time travel.
Yeah, very crude indeed.
But by being able to scan the timelines, they can see the time beetle on Donna's back, and they're able to track down the vital moment where she needs to intersect to put things right. And it's when she was going for a job interview with that firm.
Yeah.
And if she hadn't had the job interview, she wouldn't have got the job, and she'd never met the Doctor in the first place.
Yep.
So by turning left and not right at a junction would make the difference between making that interview or not.
Yep.
So Donna's then jumped back in time, and she's got to stop herself turning left somehow. And of course, her ultimate answer is to cause the accident that makes her go to the right way to do the interview by throwing herself in front of the traffic and sacrificing her own life.
Yep.
Which is only then fixed by the timey-wiminess of the paradox unraveling, and suddenly she's back on this planet, conked out, coming to with this beetle going withering on the floor after getting absolutely time rammed, shall we say?
Yes,
by the resulting feedback had fritzed it. And the Doctor suddenly turns up and panic! What's going on? No, the cloister bells ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. And the TARDIS says, "Bad wolf, bad wolf, bad wolf, bad wolf!" all over it, and it's next week.
And we're into the next one. There you go.
But before we go there, we better talk about Turn Left. So I mean, that's the episode. That's the story. Let's start with Goldenagedgeek.
This episode has always stood out to me as one of the best. I absolutely love this story. And I always love stories that tackle the parallel universe concept or alternate timeline concept, because everyone always ponders on the fact that they've made decisions and stuff has happened in their lives, but what would have happened if those things didn't go exactly how they did go? What if something very small and insignificant changed? How would it affect the rest of their lives? So whether that is turning left to take a different job or that sort of thing. I think as humans, we always wonder what could have happened. So we always, wonder what will happen, but what could have happened? What, events could have gone differently in our lives. So I think that is very interesting. And I love the fact that the Russell era is sort of all brought into this episode. We saw it in episodes such as Love and Monsters, where we see the main character, we see it from his perspective, all the events that have happened so far, such as the crashing into Big Ben, that sort of thing. So I do like that we're seeing it from a different perspective. And again, in this universe, Donna isn't the Doctor's companion. She's just a normal person. So we do see it from a very human side. It's the people below, the regular people like us. So I absolutely love that.
I have to say, you're making me feel very human with what you just said.
Absolutely brilliant.
I'm thinking about another choice. I can't help relating that back to my current situation.
Yes, indeed.
And if another choice had been made, like a choice to send me for a scan at the start of January 22, when I first started to have serious weight loss, could have made the difference between me living a little longer and a lot longer. Or indeed, not dying. So life does hit you with reality. There are times in all our lives where we can identify a turning point. They do happen.
Yes.
And, to make that into the centre of a Doctor Who story, I think, for the older part of the audience, works really well. Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I cut your flow. Please carry on, Goldenagedgeek.
No, that's pretty much it. I just think it's something that we can all relate to in many different ways. As you said, with your situation, it's something that does relate heavily to you. And I think that's what Doctor Who does best. And all these people nowadays that are saying we need certain things in our stories for people to feel represented, it's just nonsense, because people have always been able to take the themes and situations that have been in our entertainment and apply it to our own lives.
Oh, well, I mean, no, certainly if someone strapped a backpack on me and said, right, we're going to jump you back in time, your mission is to go and make that doctor take you bloody seriously. You know? I mean, of course, I'd love the chance to do that. The reality is that life doesn't work like that, and you don't get these chances. And that's part of the magic of Doctor Who. You couldn't imagine what if you could.
Yeah.
You know, but Jack, give us your take on it. Or not?
No, I was just thinking. I'm just processing, loading.
Could you make a sort of?
Yeah.
No, just so we were ding, when we know what's going on. You see, we understand that kind of stuff. Yes. If you're really unlucky, we might try and insert a floppy disk to reboot you.
Okay. Come on then, Jack. Let's have it.
Especially if it's a 5-inch.
Come on then, Jack. Come on, mate. Let's have it.
Okay, so this story is, I mean, Golden Geek has pretty much summed it all up. It's absolutely brilliant. But there is something you guys have got to explain to me. When the beetle is on Donna, is all of this happening in her head, or is it actually happening?
Actually happening.
It's actually happening.
So she wasn't just sat in this room this whole time.
No. I can actually answer that for you, Jack. In the Sarah Jane Adventures, they do actually comment on that, and the Doctor makes reference to the villain known as the Trickster, who is one of the main villains in the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yeah, I love it. I know.
And so they do mention that the beetle is a creation of his, and as you would know, that the Trickster very much does warp reality.
It does create the reality, yeah. Because it always just, I don't know if it's how it was shot, but, you know, it going from when she turns left to her just being sat in the chair again screaming, I thought, it was all in her head.
It isn't just a dream that she has to wake up from. It's a complete reordering of the universe.
Yeah.
Okay. I just think that could have been made a bit clearer to me. I mean, hey, it could just be me. Maybe I'm dumb, but
that's all right, Jack. 15 years later, we're here to help.
Yes, but no, I get what he's saying.
Absolutely.
There is. You can see where the confusion would be, because you never can 100%. But it's it happened. So very clever.
But yeah, the acting from Catherine Tate again, Bernard Cribbins, his best performance in the whole show in this story. But when he's emotional, when he's silly, and you know, he makes even the darkest times just seem brighter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so cool, and I don't know if we're
talking about families in Doctor Who. I mean, not everyone likes the domestic, but I think Donna's family does work especially well in this story, doesn't it?
Oh, brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah, they're in the shit with her.
Yeah,
trying to make the best of it with her, feeling the same dread and concern. You know, as society slips into something which is no longer democratic and free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we better score the bugger, I suppose.
Well, yeah. Well, let's get a score on the door.
Sorry. I just got no choice again. It's another A+.
I'll give it an A. I like this. An A. Just a good, solid A.
Jack?
Yeah, A+, same as John. I absolutely love this one. But what made me the most excited when I was 8 years old is the next time sequence when I just caught the glimpse of a Dalek's eye stalk. And, you know, when you're a kid, a year is a long time. And it had been...
A week is a long time.
It had been a long time since I'd seen the Dalek. And I remember jumping around the playground the next day because I was like, the Daleks are coming back. And I had no idea who else was coming back.
He's a happy little jumper. I love it.
Let's just say I hit the roof when I found out that, because I'd recently started watching Classic Who. So,
well, there you go.
I Goldenagedgeek.
A+ for me as well.
There you go. This is what's so remarkable about Series 4, because with the other RTD series, the more iffy episodes were dumped near to the finale.
Yeah.
But this year,
No.
the weakest script is a C that we've
Yeah.
had so far.
So far, yeah.
And that was the Doctor's Daughter, which, you know,
Yeah.
definitely needed a bit of work. It wasn't the best, you know, but everything else, and for us to have Midnight followed by Turn Left, you know, and just be delivering such quality at this point in the season. Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, and the other thing about Turn Left is obviously he's a story that Russell really wanted to tell.
Yeah.
Because, you know, because look at the balance of the production resources. You know, Turn Left got all the gravy out of what would have been Midnight. So that's why Midnight had to be as cheap as possible. So Turn Left could be as good as it was.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the two stories working in tandem with the production. But the result, you know, is just so good. I mean, Sadako is consistently not buying it. He says C-. You know,
Yeah,
so
initially
definitely.
gave it a D.
It's a shame actually. If we get Sadako to come on, it's a shame we couldn't have him on one of the telling one because we could have really got him to talk about this more. But you know, if we get him next week, and we can still do 4.5 with Sadako, can't we?
Yeah,
but it's all going somewhere, and the revving up, the tension, the drama, the excitement, the rising action, represented by the cliffhanger to Turn Left, just tells us that we were going to go somewhere very special. But even we had no idea how special it was going to be.
Oh my God!
All we knew is that someone had stolen the Earth.
The Earth had just gone, disappeared.
What the heck?
Stolen, gone. What? This was brilliant. This was absolutely brilliant. Love this show. I love this episode. This was just so much fun. So clever. The Daleks were back. What else could you want? What else could you possibly want?
Doctor Who on a huge canvas.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I mean, what I said was true for Silence of the Library. It's even more true for Journey's End. Stolen Earth, Journey's End.
Yeah.
You know, is that this is a story which would have filled a big screen.
Yeah.
But I mean, you wouldn't have been able to just come in and make this movie as a one-off movie because it'd have to be more like an MCU thing, you know, where it'd be built up to one new characters.
Yeah.
But it is Doctor Who's version of Infinity War, really, isn't it?
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, that's
for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
And I mean, the first part, the Doctor and Donna return to Earth. Everything looks normal. Momentarily, just before there's a giant wrench and all the milk gets knocked over, and suddenly there's loads of planets filling the sky.
Yeah, popping all over the place.
And you know, we see the Doctor and Donna respond to this. We see Rose Tyler's knocking around responding to this. We see Martha's over at unit headquarters responding to this. You know, we see Jack at Torchwood responding to this. Everybody that we see Harriet Jones, former Prime Minister, responding to this. All these different people that we've met on RTD's the journey through the RTD era are there, and they're responding to this situation, and we're totally being sold on this. Planet Earth has suddenly, well, at first we think that loads of planets have turned up. Until we actually get a cameo by none other than Richard Dawkins explaining that no,
it's not
the stars say the same. It's we who have moved. You know,
Paul McGrady.
Oh yes. I don't know about these planets or what was I drinking last night? That bleach. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's good.
So you know, we're getting this sense of huge drama.
Yeah.
You know, and then after we've established huge drama, then comes the message. And as Mr. Smith, the computer, is relaying to Sarah Jane as she's listening with Luke. And the message starts. And the message is one word.
Yeah.
Oh, are you off, Jack?
No. He's gonna do the message for us.
Oh, go on then.
Go on then,
the
mate.
The message is.
Hello out there. My connection is awful, so apologies if you're not quite getting this.
No,
Let
that
me
was
put on my reading glasses.
no.
Okay.
No.
Exterminate. Exterminate. I've said it 20 times. Do you think they've got the message? We're coming
No,
back.
it didn't more welly. It was more like exterminate, 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 and everyone's going ah. And Jack's like going, oh shit, we're dead, and Sarah Jane's going, but you're so young, oh my god, for drama. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Donna have been left out of a loop because when the Earth moved, they were inside the TARDIS, and so the TARDIS stayed in the same place.
Yes.
And so the Doctor has to get creative, and he gets creative by going to the Shadow Proclamation, and
Yes,
we
indeed.
discover the actual place with scary, pale, very blonde woman, and backed up by a couple of security rhinos.
Yes, indeed.
And the Doctor's going there to get answers, and he discovers that planets have been nicked from all over the universe.
Yep.
And then he adds in a couple of extra missing names he'd heard of recently, like the lost name of Poosh, and all of a sudden, blah, 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 it becomes clear that stealing all these planets is part of some giant master plan.
Indeed.
But there's not much to go on because all that the Doctor's got to try and help him find the Earth is a little bit of signal emitted by bees.
Bzz.
Yes. Which he follows to the edge of an asteroid. But then he's trying to find some way to break through this barrier which is stopping him progressing. Meanwhile, get your phones out, everybody, because everyone realises the Daleks are here, but the Doctor isn't, and we've got to change that.
Yes, we need to get him.
Using all of her resources, Harriet Bolt, ex-Prime Minister, Harriet Jones, ex-Prime Minister, she sets up the subwave network to beam a signal to the Doctor out into space. And utilising everyone's resources, they make it so that every phone in the world is dialing the Doctor at the same time. And so there's just signals going out, and it's very dramatic, and everyone's holding onto their phones and hoping, Doctor, 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 and it works, and the signal breaks through, and the Doctor can materialise inside the bubble, and now we can speak to them all, and their pictures are popping up, and there's Jack, and there's Harriet, and there's Sarah Jane, and there's Rose looking on Wolf's computer going, where am I? I'm left out again. But then there's an extra signal, and it's like, oh, it's Rose. The Doctor and Rose are finally going to talk again. And then it's not quite what you were expecting.
No, it didn't quite go that way, did it? No.
The arrogance. Your voice may have changed, but the arrogance of the Time Lord remains.
Indeed. Something along the lines.
And I just absolutely love it. But Davros, for it is he, wheels into view, and the Doctor has a full-on PTSD stress reaction.
Oh, absolutely. Massive.
We talk about safe spaces, but the way that Donna's at his side going, Doctor, he can't hurt you. You're in the TARDIS. That really sold the reaction. But this is one face, one voice, but it's the Doctor's utter nightmare.
Yeah,
to hear again.
Absolutely.
And just
so now we realise what stakes are involved, and it's crucial the Doctor gets to Earth and meets up with everyone as soon as possible. So he lands the TARDIS, and over there, it's that Rose. Oh, they're running towards each other. Oh, Doctor. Oh, Rose. Oh, shot through the guts by a Dalek gun.
Awesome.
Oh my God! Get me the TARDIS! It's Captain Jack. Oh no, he's been shot. Everyone pile in. Ah no, he's regenerating. Good night, Doctor. Boosh! End of episode. And we'd all heard that David Tennant was leaving the show.
Yes.
And the crowd went wild. The country went freaking nuts over this.
Yep, absolutely.
This was the biggest of them all.
It was, without a shadow of a doubt.
The cultural impact of Doctor Who in that week enormous. You know, this is where the currency underneath New Who has been built up. The currency that the show has been spending down and down and down and down until its value to the public has become so low that it needs a rescue plan.
Yeah.
But this is where all of that goodwill for New Who, this is where it was really cementing itself. This episode was just enormous. This was event television.
Oh, absolutely.
In exactly the way Power of the Doctor was not.
Was not.
And
Exactly.
absolutely in the way Legends of the Sea Devils never could have been.
Don't even go there. Ugh. No, this was brilliant.
Let's get some reactions from the lads.
Yes. Who should we go for first? Well, Jack, what do you say? Let's hear your points of view on Stolen Earth.
Blew my mind as a kid, and so much so my old headmistress at my primary school, she was a huge Doctor Who fan. I came in just completely crying because I thought I didn't want David Tennant to change. I was just like, why is he changing? Why is this happening? And we were all just theorizing, like, no, he's actually not going to change. And it's just like, he's regenerating, and the Daleks are here, and Davros is here. My God, Davros, you know, and he's got a metal hand now because he had it blown off in Revelations, which I just saw like a month before. You know, so as a kid, my mind was just going
spinning.
I know, what perfect timing to see Revelation.
And the same director directing both hands.
I know.
So
I was just loving this story to bits, and I just really hoped that the next episode wasn't going to be a letdown.
Of course. Goldenagedgeek?
Well, this episode had a very weird impact on me because I had never seen Sarah Jane Adventures or Torchwood. It's actually what pushed me to go watch those shows. But, I mean, I don't know how different I would have felt. Well, how different I would have felt about this episode if I had watched those. Maybe I would have had more of an appreciation for them because although we'd seen Sarah Jane and Captain Jack interact with the Doctor since the beginning of their shows, we've never seen the other characters, or you know, we'd never seen Luke before, we'd never seen Gwen or Yanto before. So I don't really know how, you know, differently it would have impacted me. But as an episode itself, just watching Doctor Who, I thought that it was just this. I mean, we talk about Doctor Who being the complete opposite, and it's what Jack said earlier. It's the complete opposite of Hollywood. It's not supposed to be big action set pieces. It is supposed to be more small, contained stories that focus on characters. However, Russell does know when to sort of reward the audience. He knows that, okay, we've had some more serious episodes, and now I'm going to reward you with a big action piece. And I feel it's done very well, and it complements the season. It brings all the Russell era together. Very much does make us appreciate the journey that we've been on, because this Doctor regenerating isn't going to be the same as before, because this is Russell's era. Eccleston was still part of Russell's era. It's not as simple as a Doctor's going to be regenerating. And although he doesn't fully, regenerate in this episode, it does bring everything together and it wraps it up nicely. So even though this is sort of the series finale, there are some specials afterwards. I do feel that this was a good conclusion, and I do think that the episode does it well, and it finally weaves in some more sort of classic villains with Davros. And I think one of the main criticisms of modern Doctor Who is that they don't really reference the classic series enough, and I think that, to someone like me who'd never seen the classics, when I watched this at the time, when Davros introduces himself to the Doctor again, you just know that there is some history between these two people. There is a rivalry there.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's the thing about how this is done, though, isn't it? It doesn't fan service it. It's got Davros. It's bringing Davros in, so that is bringing it up from the classic series. You've got Sarah's reaction, to he should be dead, and then I think Davros later says to her, "You were there at the very beginning on Scarrow," but that's it. It doesn't need to go any more than that. It doesn't dwell on it any more than that. It gives you more than enough. But if you're curious, if you go and find a Sarah Jane story, you'll see one with Davros at the start of Daleks. So it's telling you that Genesis is there to go and find. as a new fan, telling you there's stories in the past to go and discover, which you did, or you already had done at this point. And I mean, that's all fantastic. I mean, and then the conclusion. I mean, you've got the hand, which has been knocking around since Christmas Invasion.
Yeah,
and then it becomes the central MacGuffin to the whole story, because the regeneration energy gets poured into it, and the Doctor only heals himself. He doesn't do a full change. Hi, Cam's crash courses. You're very kind. You're very kind.
He is very
Here
kind.
to be enjoyed.
Yes.
I hope to be a little. I hope it will be a little legacy for fans for years to come.
Yes, indeed.
And where did I've lost the thread for a moment there. God,
Talking about the hand. Talking about the
the Doctor's hand. And of course it was a key part of the earlier plot, the previous season as well. With the Master making use of it. And then this then becomes the Meta Crisis Doctor, and becomes an entire new Doctor Who out of it. And Time Lords aren't earthworms, but in this case they kind of were. But
this story,
and then you've got the incredible fulfillment of the prophecy of the Dr. Donna.
Yeah, the Dr. Donna.
And I just love the way that it comes. Of course, you've got different elements together. They're discovering about the reality bomb. And how it's going to crush reality into this flat stream of neutrinos and do this all just the same.
Yeah.
And how the Daleks can do that to the entire universe, safe inside their bubble. And therefore, gosh, we've got to stop them. But, I love how the Meta Crisis Doctor and Donna tried to stage an assault, and it seems to go all wrong. Yeah. And you've got Davros's contempt for
utter contempt.
But then, just as his back was turned, as the cackles of the insane Dalek Khan ring around the room, a woman stands back up with a glow in her eyes and the speed of the best tempered Chiswick.
Yeah.
And then there's this fantastic scene where she's just messing with the Daleks big time.
It's brilliant.
And absolutely brilliant.
I will say,
brilliant.
As a huge fan of the Daleks, this annoyed me, how pressing a couple of buttons basically wiped them all out.
But you haven't got the inspiration of the Dr. Donna to know which couple of buttons to press, Jack. That's the thing.
But why would you be so dumb as to rely all these machines on pressing a few buttons? Have you not learned from the Daleks back in 1963 that relying on something outside of yourself?
The Daleks bringing their prisoners into the centre of their control network again, isn't it?
They keep doing it.
These aren't just any buttons. They're the most important buttons in the Dalek Empire. And let the Doctor, any version of him, get his hands on them is a bad idea. So...
There's always a way out, but it's right. Fancy having all this technology.
I'd love a Dalek in the future to just say, no buttons this time, Doctor. No arbitrary buttons.
Yeah,
that would be a great line.
Suckers only, eh? Handproof. Suckers only.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be brilliant.
Well, there you go. You could put a memo in about updating security measures on the Dalek mothership. Oh, Sadako, damn you with your logic.
Yes, indeed. I was about to say that.
It was implied that the reality bomb will destroy all universes, which nags me because it means there must be a parallel universe where Davros did press the button, which should doom our universe too. Maybe it hasn't just happened yet. Who knows? But that's...
I am with Jack. That disappointing way to defeat the
Don't think about it too much. I mean, even classic don't think about it that much. But you're right, of course.
It's the first time the Daleks weren't taken seriously in the show, and that kind of irks me a little bit as a huge fan of them. In Series 1, they only lost because, they were defeated by another overpowered Mary Sue, but let's just ignore that. In this one, they were also defeated by another overpowered Mary Sue. Do you know, I'm done. I'm not a Doctor Who fan anymore. See you guys later.
Well...
He's muted.
Are the Daleks themselves overpowered, Mary Suze? There's a question.
It's true though. It's a bit weird that they're this ultimate enemy, and then they could be beaten by.
It is a problem of stakes.
It is.
Because you would need a giant space armada to defeat them by some conventional means.
Yes.
Which Planet Earth 2008 didn't have one of those hanging around.
No.
Even though we did have a floating aircraft carrier, it wasn't quite up to the job.
Wasn't quite up to the job.
Valiant got shut down. Yes. So it was going to have to be some clever ploy to resolve the thing, but it did resolve it well. And of course, it's pop all the planets back. Meanwhile, the Daleks' headquarters is going to blow up, of course. But that's because the Doctor turns his back for a moment to try and sort things out to save the planet, goes into the TARDIS, and then the Metacrisis Doctor, who only has one heart and is in fact therefore a human with a Time Lord brain, rather than a Time Lord with a human body or something. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes any sense, John. Never mind, John.
Doesn't matter. Just crack on.
He decides that the only way is the Time War way, and so he hits the button and destroys all the Daleks, commits a genocide, and then that leaves us with our final view of Davros in a clip which has been thoroughly memed.
You could say
where Davros points at the Doctor across the wreckage of the collapsing control room with flaming girders falling all around him. I name you, Doctor! You are the blankety blank of worlds!
Exactly
what I said to Chris Chibnall when I saw The Timeless Child.
You're not wrong, man. You're not wrong.
That's what we all felt.
Yeah, we all felt that.
Let's try and keep this New Who talk to while discussing New Who. Damn, that's awkward. Because it is harder to avoid talking about New Who while talking about New Who. We got away with banning talking about it during Classic. We could just blank it. But
this is getting closer.
Yeah, it is getting close.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with the ending to Journey's End, I can't help but admit this does devolve into Doctor Who pantomime. Because everyone gets a bit, everyone gets happy, gets a mention, everyone gets a look in, and everyone gets a happy ending.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it. I love the cheesy schmaltziness of it. I just love that everybody piloting the TARDIS properly for once. I love the dragging planet Earth through space with a timeless zoo around it. I love it.
Yeah.
But if I take a step back from it, I recognise that this is pretty close to jumping the shark.
Yeah.
It holds together just as a one-off way of doing it. Just. I think it's a triumphant story, but I don't think it's the best story of the season.
No, yeah.
Right, let's do some more reactions. Let's bring in your thoughts on part 2, please, fellas. Especially, have you said what you have? You got more to share on this? Either of you?
Either Jack,
Goldenagedgeek.
Anything else?
Golden Age, you go first, man.
Well, you first.
I will say that I do agree with the criticism that Donna pressing a few buttons is kind of a cop-out. I will admit that. However, I feel that Russell didn't really know how to get into the position he wanted Donna to be in, where she ultimately has to be mind wiped, otherwise she will die. Otherwise, because she's been given this immense power, and of course you can't allow her to continue on with the Doctor like that. However, you do need to resolve it in some way. And I feel that Russell, he always does this thing where Russell always does the build up very well, but he doesn't know how to pay it off. And we've seen that with loads of stories, like with at the end of season.
Sadako comment here is just spot on. It is a guilty pleasure.
Yeah,
I'd say what holds it together is Graham Harper. Of course, Graham did a lot this series, but also I think this was about where he actually was ready to properly retire because he's getting a bit old, So I think there's a lot of Graham Harper in this. And this is his chance to do a massive epic for Doctor Who, and to top what he did with Revelation. So, but I think that's a big factor in the motivation of the director to make it work. I'd agree with what Sadako says there. Sorry, Goldenagedgeek. I did that to you again, didn't I? I'm terrible.
What I always say about entertainment is that I don't care if there are some plot holes or some nitpicks you can have with it, as long as it has love and there's respect for the story. And this episode very much has that. And as we've explained, there could be some plot holes with the weapon that Davros uses, or some of the character things like with Donna. But ultimately, I could tell what they were trying to do. I knew that there was this whole story, as you said earlier, John. It does fan service correctly. It doesn't do it for the sake of it. It weaves it into the story so it makes sense and it doesn't feel as if they're trying to pander
kind of. I mean, it does classic fan service correctly. You could argue that it's a whole act of new fan service.
Yeah.
But the thing that stands out to me the most in this episode is the end where the Doctor takes Donna home and she's had her whole mind wiped of all of her adventures and all of her heroic actions. And I do like it when the Doctor sits down with her mother and Wilf, and her mother has always been very disrespectful towards Donna. I feel it's more kind of a tough love. She does care about Donna, but she is being very hard on her. She's
that line with the Doctor corrects her, isn't it? You could have told her that.
Yeah, that's just a brilliant
moment. He says it with a bit of edge.
And Wilf's just like, I'm not getting involved, but it's true.
I'm out of this. I'm not. No.
The one line from Wilf in this story that always cracks me up is when Rose is at their house and she says to Wilf, "Have you got a webcam?" And he goes, "No, she won't let me have that. They're naughty."
That's a perfect line.
It is.
That's a perfect line. I mean, just says so much about both their characters.
I don't think I was here for this episode, but my favourite is where he says, when he sneaks off to the garage and gets pork pies, don't deny I've seen the wrappers in the car.
Oh, yeah, indeed. Yes.
How many people, this is a real life, we know people like this who are like this. Come on. It's so, that's what I love about Russell. It's just, he has characters like you don't get in the rest of Doctor Who, that they're just so bland and vanilla. From Russell, in Russell's era, you got some great characters, and
you have. I mean, wait, you've got good old Noel Clarke putting a big blaster right in Davros's face in this one.
That's what I was going to say. Like towards the end, I think the ending, like with Goldenagedgeek, I think that is the most impactful part of this story. Mickey finally evolves from being a simp and says, "No stuff, Rose. I'm going to go marry Martha." And because I've been looking at her for 20 minutes, I'm like, yeah, she's what I'm about. So he finally moves on from Rose. And then there's the really emotional scene with, I mean, to be honest, saying goodbye to Rose, it was like, yeah, we've already done this already. She gets to go snog a human version. So it's like, and the Doctor's like, right, I can finally move on now, and runs off into the TARDIS as quickly as possible. And then you've got Donna saying goodbye, which is just the most heartbreaking scene ever. To be honest, it really is, because Donna evolves as a character. She goes from being this irritating, the kind of woman I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, to just being the most, relatable, funny, compassionate. Like she gets more compassionate the more she spends with the Doctor. And, she really grows as a human being. And all you have to do is watch The Runaway Bride and then watch.
The more she learns, the more she cares.
Yeah, and to know that all of that is going to go away. And even she knows, she's like, no, please, I don't want to be that again. And the Doctor having no choice but to do it. And, just Bernard Cribbin's performance, like when he's crying, and like, but she was better with you. And she's like, no, she was. And, and David's performance as well, when he's out there getting soaked in the rain, just... And
the resolution of the plot was pantomime, but the resolution of the story was not.
Yeah,
You've got a semi-happy ending for Rose because she gets to have a relationship with a form of the Doctor, even though it's not quite the one she wanted. But then you get no happy ending for Donna.
No, none whatsoever.
No. Well, will this change in the sequel?
And then it ends with the Doctor on his own again,
and lonely.
cold, alone, drenched, dripping, and heartbroken.
Yeah, devastating.
Sailing off towards whatever his fate will be.
I need to ask you guys, have you seen the alternate ending to this story?
Don't think so. Tell me about
where
it.
the two Cybermen teleport behind him.
Have you seen that? Terms of yeah, it wasn't used. I have seen it. Yes.
I need to ask
looked
you
really
guys.
awful. It looked really awful.
I was just gonna say, what ending would you have preferred when he stands there and just
the
pushes
ending
the handbrake, or with the Cybermen?
The ending it gets is infinitely
the ending it gets is perfect.
Yeah,
that would have just ruined it actually.
Because I love the trailer that came straight after that, the sound of the Cybermen's mechanical parts, and as a kid I was jumping up and down.
Of course, it did. It did trail the next Doctor right away, didn't it?
Yeah, no, I was jumping up and down again because the Cybermen, yes, we hadn't seen them in 2 years at that point.
No, we hadn't. That's absolutely right.
Well, whether the promise of yet more Cybermen was fulfilled is a question for next week.
It certainly is.
But let's wrap up. We haven't done the scores yet, have we? Let's wrap up with our final scores.
Let's do the final scores.
And I'm going to come in with a B+ for the finale.
I'm going to come in with just a solid standard B.
Standard B. Jack?
I'm with you, John. B+ for me.
B+, and Goldenagedgeek.
I would say A-.
A-.
Excellent.
There's so much going for Journey's End. It's almost as if it might have looked a bit better if the stories for the whole season hadn't been so strong.
Yeah.
But now looking back on it, we can see how it was reliant on its momentum to keep it moving, or it would fall over.
Yeah.
But it just says so much for Russell's ambition and daring as a showrunner. That he took those risks and, pay attention, Chris Chibnall, pulled them off.
Yeah. Pulled them off.
Because nothing succeeds like success.
Absolutely.
Just as nothing fails like failure.
Indeed.
But this was not a time of failure for Doctor Who. This was a time of unassailable triumph.
It was.
But also the knowledge that change was going to come.
Yes, indeed it was.
But we had a little bit more of David Tennant to go. But after that, things would never be the same. So, well done, TARDIS Spider.
Turns up just at the end again. He's consistent.
I'm sorry, dude, but we are also consistent when we start the stream. So I'm afraid we're now coming right to the end of this one. Because we've been on air coming up to 3 hours on this one.
Yes.
No one can say we've not put the work in this week.
Yeah, I won't get told off when I get back in the house.
Oh gosh! Well, look, I think that's it, isn't it? Let's call it quits. And final words, lads.
Jack.
This is my probably my second favorite RTD series, next to Series 1. Are we doing an overall ranking of the series?
Yeah, whatever you want to use.
Overall. Yeah. It's action-packed.
Not too long.
Yeah, it's action-packed. It's blockbuster. It does have a few duds for me. Unfortunately, I don't think it got off to the best start. Planet of the Ood is one of my favourite of all time. I just really like this series in general, and in fact, talking about it made me want to go watch it again. So, as an overall rating, I give it a solid B.
Nice.
Excellent. And Goldenagedgeek?
this series, I will say, is probably my favorite of the RTD era. There are some episodes that we've gone through, and there are some criticisms that you can have, but overall, I just absolutely love them. And even the less good episodes, I can still find something with them to enjoy. I can always find enjoyment watching those episodes, and despite their flaws, of course, you have the 10th Doctor, you have Donna, and I know, like Gobby's made it clear that he doesn't particularly find Donna to be the best companion. I can understand why you think that, but for me personally, I've always gravitated towards Donna, and I think it has to do with the fact that there wasn't a sort of stupid romance, will they, won't they aspect to it. So I think that Donna just works for me, although I do understand, of course, why some people may not particularly like her. But yeah, this series has everything going for it for me. I think
if you don't like Donna, it's because you've grown up with mouthy women. That's what causes it, and I can vouch for that. So it's. But I do still like her. I think when you've met Catherine Tate, it's just like, yeah, I love her.
Well, I would say that Donna is my favourite New Who companion, followed closely by Bill Potts.
Yeah.
I think with both of them, it's because they're characters that allow you to have the most fun.
Yeah.
They most readily embrace adventure without baggage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think that speaks to both of them. I just want to mention that TARDIS Spider's only just shown up. But it mentioned they've been to the radiologist today.
Yeah.
So I hope that
that
everything there is good news for you. But as much as I can be, if I could be any help, you can always reach me over on my Twitter at John the White One. The DMs are open. So fingers crossed, all the best for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll call that a show. I think same time next week, everyone.
Yes, same time next week.
We'll do my best.
Excellent.
We'll dive straight into the question of the next Doctor.
The next Doctor, indeed. And with that, I shall bring this one to a close. Thank you so much, everybody who's watched and everybody who was in the comments. Big thanks goes to John, Jack, and Goldenagedgeek. Thank you all for joining us. And I shall look forward to catching you all next Friday. And with that, I'll see you soon. Goodbye.